Hi, this is David Ellman with HouseAtTheEndOfTheDrive.com. You're listening to KPLK, The Fringe FM.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
We told you weeknights on the Fringe FM are now even better. And we mean it.
Do it live!
Where else can you hear the best shows and the best talent? Kick off your evening with our newest host, Alex Exum, live at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 Eastern. Hang out with me, Joe Roop, on Lighting the Void at 9 Pacific, midnight Eastern. Ryan Gable expands your mind on the secret teachings at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern. We're bringing the heat every single night. Fire it up, The Fringe FM.
Live for 3 hours every Saturday night. It's a show that engages the mind, makes you think, and maybe even challenge what you think you know. Hi, I'm Jeremy Scott of Into the Paranormal, where we talk about topics that are anything but mainstream, somewhere between abnormal and paranormal. Bring an open mind and join us for Into the Paranormal, live Saturdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on the Fringe FM.
This is Paranormal News. I'm John Jeter. The site of the 1947 UFO crash near Roswell, New Mexico, has changed hands. The ranching property, now owned by Dinwiddie Cattle Company, LLC, has been synonymous with extraterrestrials and government cover-ups for the past 72 years. The Army first said they had recovered a flying disc, but later changed their story to a high-altitude weather balloon, which nobody believes, right? The new owner says they're not sure about whether the property will be opened back up to the public. The previous owners hosted a UFO festival on the property last summer, which was for the first time they had opened up the land in their 66 years of ownership. A space station inside of an asteroid? Well, a study led by University of Vienna astronomer Thomas Meindl explores that possibility. It has not been peer-reviewed, though. He proposes that a solid asteroid, at least a few hundred meters in diameter, rotating 1 to 3 times per minute, would create sufficient subsurface gravity to allow miners to safely hammer out a treasure trove of rare and precious minerals. Putting a base inside an asteroid rather than on the surface would shield miners from deadly radiation. Meindl says seeing this become a reality might take decades. Read these stories and more at ParanormalRadio.com. I'm John Jeter, and this is Paranormal News. This is Paranormal News. I'm John Jeter. The final image from NASA's Kepler Space Telescope shows a galaxy full of possibilities. The planet-hunting mission was retired on October 30th when it ran out of fuel. For its grand finale, Kepler was pointing toward the constellation Aquarius and recorded a glimpse of the TRAPPIST-1 system that consists of 7 rocky planets. Kepler discovered over 2,600 worlds beyond our solar system over its 9.5-year life, which was 6 more than its original life expectancy.
The idea that there are more planets than stars is just incredible to think about. We know that there are billions and billions of stars in our galaxy, and to think that there are even more planets, it completely changes our thinking and our place in the universe.
Earth's magnetic North Pole is now moving so fast that it lies in a completely different location. This isn't anything new, but the rate at which it's moving is unprecedented. Just 50 years ago, the pole drifted about 7 miles per year. Now it's moving about 34 miles a year from the Canadian Arctic North toward Russia. So what's the big deal, you ask? Just imagine trying to navigate with that. NASA, the FAA, and the Forest Service use the magnetic poles for mapping and air traffic control. Your smartphone and GPS devices also rely on magnetic north for location. This rapid movement could signal a flip of the magnetic poles, man. Read these stories and more at ParanormalRadio.com. I'm John Jeter, and this is Paranormal News.
message is being broadcast by the Department of Defense of the Republic. At 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, multiple unidentified objects were confirmed to have entered Earth's atmosphere.
Discovery Houston, 20 seconds to LOS T-Drift.
Contact, nice to be in orbit.
The first message that comes to you is you are a divine being. You matter. You count. You come from realms of unimaginable power and light, and you will return to those realms.
The vast stretches of the unknown and the unanswered and the unfinished still far outstrip our collective comprehension.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting from Forest Tower Studios, all the way from the Deep South. Now, here is your host, Joe Root.
Good evening. It is Thursday night, and the moon is still waning here in the natural state on this February the 21st on into the 22nd tonight. Thank you for joining us wherever you're listening from. We are live on KTLK Digital Broadcasting, The Fringe FM, and that website is www.thefringe.fm. And our website is lightingthevoid.com. You can follow us on social media if you like. Just search Lighting the Void under all those places that you do your social stuff. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, etc. Tonight we're going to be talking about the magic of the Rose Cross, discerning the truth about the Rosicrucians, possibly looking into this a little bit deeper. Now, this is a really, really vast subject, actually. I could do several shows on this because there's so many avenues to go down. But I think I've kind of put it all into perspective, and hopefully by the end of tonight, I can at least get you to be curious about researching this stuff yourself instead of being told what it really is via certain agendas. And I'll get into that. But there's a big backstory to the Rose Cross and the Rosicrucians and Freemasons and all of that. And they have several locations throughout the land and throughout Europe right now. So yeah, I'm kind of going at this alone tonight. So if you want to call in, you can call in. It's 1-800-588-0335. If you have any questions or comments that you want to talk about, or you can text into the show at 501-777-5631. You can also support the show by donating, and the more you guys donate, the better. And here's the thing. I know some of you just can't afford to do it, and if you have that guilt thing where like, dude, I can't afford it, but I'd love to, don't worry about it. Just don't. What you can do is you can share the show. If you do like the show, you can leave reviews and stuff like that. That's plenty good enough. But also know that there's some people that feel like, I can only donate like $5 or something. Man, you'd be surprised how much that helps. So even those guys that do that, thank you so much for doing that. Also, the Amazon portal is there, and a lot of people have been using that, which is pretty cool. It's kind of funny though. So we've sold like $1,000 in Amazon products through that portal, and I think we've made $60 so far. But the cool thing is when you shop at Amazon, it don't cost you anything extra. It just kicks back to us. This is not. See, Moon had me look at this. So this is not confused. There's something else with Amazon that has to do with nonprofits and stuff like that. This is totally different. I forget what it's called. Moon may have to remind me, but this is just a portal. It's just I may end up making my own portal so you can see it better, but it's just the banner there. So tonight I wanted to talk about this subject of the Rose Cross and the Rosicrucians. If one is to really understand magic and the occult or occult science, I think it's important first that we remove our bias or preconceived opinions about it. In fact, it's probably pretty important that we do this for everything we learn. So afterwards, we can make up our own minds about subjects, right? So keep in mind that occult science does not belong to a specific order or a specific secret society. Occult science is just that. It's a hidden, esoteric, spiritual science. It is what it is. It's something that the quantum physicists and all of this new science is heading towards, and I think they're kind of touching on that. We just got through talking about how they figured out that messages were being traveled through the brain wirelessly. So that's pretty big, right? So they're getting close. But remember, just like in that movie, that sometimes science explains the least of things, even though when it comes to evidence, proof, and data, it's measured. So science is good too. You can learn this occult science, though, within any mystical order or mystery teaching from the West to the East, under any mystery school. And it's not my agenda here to get you to believe that there are secret orders running the world, or if there isn't secret orders running the world. I've probably completely given up on arguing that fact, simply because that's a very, very deep hole, right? And we have to look at this stuff in context. Simply because you realize that this stuff, this occult science, these teachings are hidden within us all. It doesn't really matter about in my opinion, about who's running what dark cabal's doing what, because we can all tap into this if we choose, or if you choose not to. Now, if you guys remember correctly, if you know who I'm talking about, it was Bill Cooper who really pushed the idea that secret societies were ruling the world. Secret societies made up of Masons, Rosicrucians, and the Illuminati. Now, I've probably listened to the Mystery Babylon series 100 times, and what I've noticed is that there is in his work, which I love his work, by the way, because it does reveal some of the teachings, but there's an agenda behind it. Do we really have to go back to the past shows to talk about agenda? But there is a definite agenda to scare you about this stuff. And I want to be 100% apparent that it was his agenda to get you to understand that all of this was opposite of what the Bible teaches. It's not Christian, in other words. Even though he said that he really wasn't pushing Christianity, you could kind of tell after you listen to the stuff. In fact, that's what he was doing. I mean, anything that wasn't Christian pretty much was something to be afraid of. He made it that 100% point to get you afraid of it. If you don't believe me, if you've never heard the Mystery Babylon teachings, a lot of this stuff is where it comes from. For sure. A lot of the people's thoughts and beliefs on Masonry and Rosicrucians and the Illuminati come from Bill Cooper's, Behold a Pale Horse and things like that. What he did do, though, was actually read about some of the teachings and for the first time put it out to the masses what these teachings really were. But let's go back to the agenda. Now, I'm going to play this, and I want you to, this was his opening to his show. What, if any, agenda is behind this show, if you can hear the opening? Let's listen to it.
Across America and around the world, you're listening to the Hour of the Time, the only hour that ever was or ever will be, for during this hour you will decide your future and thus our collective futures. I'm your host, William Cooper. Everybody look back in that corner at the far side of the room where it's real dark behind that chair. I'm going to turn on a very, very bright light. And I want you all to watch the cockroaches scatter. For tonight, I'm going to read verbatim to you from a book that we found in a dusty shelf far back in the rear of a used bookstore that proves beyond any shadow of a doubt that what I've been revealing to you in the many segments of the series entitled The Mystery Schools on this program, The Hour of the Time, has been not only true, but right on target, and the first time that this information has ever been exposed in its entirety to the people of the world.
Now, I don't know if that's true. It was the first time that he read books from certain secret societies over the air, which, I thought about doing. I thought, man, that would be cool if we could read books over the air. But if you listen to the opening of that, I mean, it's a buzzer and horn, like a siren with, marching soldiers and dogs barking, talking about a curfew, and it's the hour of the time, your soul and body is mine. Every episode, every show he did that opening. So we can go back to that, right? So the effect was to put you in a state of fear, and then he had a way of talking like this that would get you to understand that he's the ultimate purveyor of truth and that you should be afraid of these things, right? And he was really good at it, and it's entertaining. I mean, I usually listen to it once a year, but the more I listen to it and the more I study the stuff myself, the more I realize that this stuff was completely unorthodox to him, these teachings, and they were, to him, based on a lot of pagan things and a global elitist system that was trying to take over the world. That all of these societies, the Rosicrucians, the mystery schools, the Freemasons, every one of them were all under one pyramidal thing, and that we're trying to take over the world. Now, just because someone says they're not trying to push a Christian agenda doesn't mean that they aren't. Okay? Keep that in mind. It's kind of like when you hear somebody say, man, I'm not jealous, okay? But you kind of know deep down they are. So just because somebody says something doesn't mean that's what's going on. So all of these questions and statements that we hear about the Rosicrucians from both sides, the mystics and the conspiratorial, are reasons why we have internal conflicts. It's the reasons why when we go study this stuff for ourselves, we have a lot of questions because it doesn't really add up. It doesn't line up with our experience. But the guy on the podium, whether it's a guy behind the microphone or at the church podium or standing in front of a stage telling you these things, is where you put your stock in, not your own research, but the fact that they can put on a damn good presentation. And it must mean something, right? Because they can. But that's not really true, is it? My own experience with the mystery schools, I can tell you real quick, I had my own experience. First, it was in Freemasonry. And the second, it was in Rosicrucian temples. This isn't a man talking about books or from the outside looking in, making my own conclusions. I've actually been inside these temples, went through some of these rituals, talked to some of these people. And what I can tell you is they're definitely not trying to take over the world from what I've seen and from what my experience is. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't sects of people in the government and other places in our world that use some of these teachings to their advantage or to do certain things or manipulations. It doesn't mean that that's not happening. Of course it could be. But the funny thing I realized is that a lot of these orders, they were just orders that people made up, people that just made up their own stuff. They made up their own organizations. They made up their own certificates. They had their own things, what some people call clandestine orders, and there were thousands of them. Well, these guys are real Masons, and these guys aren't. So you had to figure out what's what and who's who, and the lineage stuff was funny. And then this Masonic order didn't recognize this Masonic order, and these Rosicrucians didn't recognize these Rosicrucians. And it's just like your Uncle Bob from down the road in one of these places. And really, you're thinking, okay, well, maybe there's some dark force at the top of these organizations that's trying to, mind control these people. And once they get up there, they'll realize it. I'm just telling you, man, from my experience, I don't think that's what's going on. Now, there are sects in the government that are running things, like we talked about before, the Council for National Policy. That's just one of them. There are several different little orders and sects inside the government that have their own agendas, especially when it comes to money and the military-industrial complex and the secret space program and, everything. I mean, it's like lobbying for everything. So these people, some of these people, can actually have a meeting and move the markets within 10 minutes if they start deciding they want to move money around. And that's the kind of stuff that you should be worried about. That's what's really running the country. And I also think that that's what really took out Kennedy, was that Kennedy saw inside the government that there were other sects of government that were doing their own things, that they could, when they met in secret, these guys had so many connections and so much power that they could pretty much do whatever they wanted to. Doesn't matter how we voted, didn't matter what we did. They could move the money how they wanted to. And he didn't like that. He didn't like secret things inside the government. He wanted things to be transparent. And then he got shot. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the Rosicrucians just tonight. And there's many different sects of magical orders and stuff, but this is specifically the one that I've studied a little bit about. And I want to get into the history of the Rosicrucians briefly, like the genesis of the Rose Cross. And now there's this big story around this guy named Christian Rosenkreuz, and you can look this up yourself. It's more analogy than anything. If you've done any studies on this stuff, you know it comes from Europe. You also know that it comes from people like Francis Bacon and John Dee. And maybe there's some Rosicrucians here that we didn't know. Some people say that George Washington was a Rosicrucian. Some people say Abraham Lincoln was, Benjamin Franklin, Walt Disney. I can go down the list. Victor Hugo, Isaac Newton, Leonardo da Vinci, Thomas Paine. Now, some of these men, do they sound like they're super evil to you? Giordano Bruno, fascinating guy. I would love to do a whole show on this guy later. William Lloyd Garrison, Alexander Wilder, Jacob Boehme. Here's one that most of you know. Gene Roddenberry, Max Heindel, William Wynne Westcott, Manly P. Hall, Rudolf Steiner, Arthur Edward Waite, John Yarker. There's so many people that were in these societies that never really seemed evil to me, or they were trying to take over the world or push some type of agenda. Now, there's this cat going around named William Schnobel who claims that he was in Masonry, and he's got all these certificates, and he talks about how he was a vampire and that he went to some planet and he was a part of this big evil thing. Let me tell you something, man. I looked into this as well when I first saw this guy talking about these things. I've asked the guy to be on my show. Maybe he hasn't seen the email. Maybe he has. But he has an agenda too, right? If you listen to the guy speak, he's all about pushing the Bible and the Hebrew version of it. And he calls, Yeshua Yahweh, actually. And so he has his own agenda. Of course, he's going to say that anything outside Christianity is evil. If we look into our history, we can see what Christianity's done to many people. Some of the things that we point our finger at now and we say terrorist, Muslim type stuff. I mean, I'm talking, we don't do this anymore, but Christians had their day too when it came to genocides and killing and all the stuff in the name of religion and etc. Right? We don't have to go down that road. We know it. The key is to keep an open mind about this and to not let yourself get paranoid, because in the end, you'll be able to make your own decisions. And hopefully you'll have some research to back it off of. Now, Arthur Edward Waite was a Rosicrucian, but he did help create the famous tarot deck, the Rider-Waite deck, which is to this day, in my opinion, not the real tarot deck that was created in the Golden Dawn, but it is the one that got released and the one that everybody knows about. And so, in all of this stuff, and all of these shows, I think a lot of people get the idea that I have the agenda to bash Christianity, which is so not true, or the agenda to say that all of these secret societies and stuff are really nice people and they're not evil at all, and that's not true. But I do have the agenda of discerning the truth about it, and I do have my own experiences with it. And like I said, half of these people in these orders don't know what's what. They don't know what lineage is what. They just want to be a part of something. And what I also learned is that in these orders, most of the stuff like the rituals, the symbols, and all of the gear and the aprons and all of these things these people get, it's just exoteric stuff that represents what we know has power in the astral realm. And this is where things are going to get a little bit deeper as we go along in the broadcast tonight. Because in the astral realm and learning to separate the subconscious and conscious, as above, so below, the microcosm and the macrocosm, learning to be able to move between those, whether it's study, practice, or whatever. That's what this is all about. And it's not all about certain people having these powers and you don't get it. When they talked about the profane in the ancient days of the Rosicrucians, right, when they said that this message was not for the profane was somebody that was quick to judge, right? So to you and I, the profane would be somebody that's not willing to study on their own. They call themselves a researcher when they've really just listened to people speak, and then they look up a few articles by themselves, and now all of a sudden they're a researcher. Or they're actually the priestcraft, the church that's pushing things. You know, you got like Rome did, how they pushed the church. All of these things were the profane, people that just did everything in their power not to look deep enough to understand this thing. And there was consequences. That's it. That's all there was. There's a consequence. It's just kind of like they kept it secret so they wouldn't get strung up, or they wouldn't get hurt, or they wouldn't be misunderstood. You know, the profane. It's not like they're looking down on you and saying that you're somebody that's stupid or you don't get it. The real thing is like when you are at that level of, okay, like I want to know what this is about, then you would come knocking, you know, the whole knock and you shall receive, ask and it shall be given. All of the mysteries will be revealed when you're ready for it. And so I hear these cats going around saying, yeah, the Masons, they tried to recruit me. The Rosicrucians, right? They tried to recruit me. That's not how it works. Now, nowadays, it's a little bit different because we have the internet. So you see things like from Amorc and the Golden Dawn, and you see, you know, marketing funnels to get you to come sign up and stuff. That's because now it's so prevalent. It's everywhere now. But that still doesn't mean it's evil, right? But it doesn't mean that there aren't evil things that happen in these societies, that people don't use some of this stuff. And, you know, I've produced a lot of radio shows and been a part of a lot of different things doing this. And one thing that comes up is like, yeah, this guy was doing that, Bob, etc. Yeah, wasn't he a Mason? Oh, yeah. Oh, he was a Mason. Which we come to find out later doesn't really have to do with anything after you ask them the question. Well, what does this person being a Mason have to do with what happened? And then you get a whole string of, well, he was just a Mason. That's all I know. And they're here to take over the world. Yeah, you know, why are we talking about this still? Because we still haven't moved past it. That's all. We will, though. We'll move past it soon enough. And some of you that are listening are probably actually Masons and are probably laughing. Some of you may still be afraid of it, and you have your own beliefs and you want to turn the channel because you don't want to hear. That's fine, whatever. Doesn't matter. But I know some of you are curious, and I really wanted to touch on the symbol of the rose cross, the magic of the rose cross tonight, the symbology behind it. So maybe we could understand that. Just by looking at the symbol, we could understand the true meaning of what this stuff is, or at least get a grasp of what it could be. And if we get to that understanding, then we can, guess what? We can make up our own minds. So that's all there is to it. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk about the magic of the rose cross, some of the teachings, some of the symbology behind it. We're also going to talk about the lineages, or not real lineages behind this stuff, the orders that I know of today that you could sign up if you want to, or if you don't want to. But keep in mind all the stuff you can learn on your own. In fact, I would say if you had an open mind enough, you could probably listen to Bill Cooper and learn quite a bit about their teachings if you were willing to push away the scary and biased stuff and say, well, maybe it's not so bad. Maybe it's not really evil just because it's different. Anyways, we're at our first break, guys. Yeah, if you want to call in or comments, 1-800-588-0335. You can text into the show at 501-777-5631. We'll be right back.
show is being brought to you by Ultra Bark, the world's leading toothpaste for sensual dogs.
You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
The truth is out there.
There's something out here.
And so are we. KTLK Digital Broadcasting, The Fringe FM.
Do you ever wonder why there's so much show in politics? Do you ever wonder why America's not getting fixed? Ever wonder why our media is not reporting the news? They report only their biased opinion. Are you tired of feeling like a controlled rat? Do you wonder what's next? If you're looking for answers, join me, Ronnie McMullen, for my new show, Deep Waters Radio. That's Deep Waters Radio. Monday nights, 9 p.m. Pacific, right here on the Fringe FM.
Hi, this is Aaron Hunter, host of Real Paranormal Activity, the podcast where we tell real paranormal experiences of people from around the world. And we also conduct interviews with authors, investigators, psychics, and mediums. Real people, real stories, real fear. Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on the Fringe FM. See you then.
When I'm done running with the wolves after hunting down a half-ton bison, I look forward to a mind-teetering escapade evening on the Fringe FM.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
This is Cortana from Shift Happens, telling you to pour a glass and park your ass because you're listening to KTLK, The Fringe FM. Shithead.
Folks, this is very important information. What's to be said about CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. Our CBD is made from hemp and has 0.003 THC, which means this wonderful product won't get you high, no matter what amount you take. What does CBD do for the body? My hands are tied. But you can Google CBD benefits and be astounded. When you're finished reading, you'll want to log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com and purchase. Life is good when you feel good. People are tired of pain. People are asking for non-GMO organic products to help them with you fill in the blank. Legal in 49 states, and again, our CBD is made from hemp. Ancient Life Oil is about helping people one by one by one. If you wonder how good the product is, the CEO takes it every day without miss. AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Have a great day.
Howdy, this is Catalina, and you're listening to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop.
Live for 3 hours every Saturday night. It's a show that engages the mind, makes you think, and maybe even challenge what you think you know. Hi, I'm Jeremy Scott of Into the Paranormal, where we talk about topics that are anything but mainstream, somewhere between abnormal and paranormal. Bring an open mind and join us for Into the Paranormal, live Saturdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on the Fringe FM.
All right, welcome back to Lighting the Void. So we're talking about the magic of the rosy cross tonight. And don't forget, we are here Monday through Thursday night, 9 p.m. Pacific to midnight. If you're listening live, then afterwards, the Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable comes on. And I want to thank Ryan for coming on the show last night. That was really cool. I really appreciate it, even though we did get some blowback from it. But, you know, every show I've done with Ryan, we've gotten a little bit blowback from. And it's fun, actually, because he's really passionate about the truth. And I hope he's listening, brother. I hope you're listening to this one, because this is stuff that we talk about off the air, too. Another thing, too, is I keep forgetting to mention that we have 2 chat rooms. There's one over on Spreaker, but there's also like a 24/7 chat room in Discord where we kind of just hang out every now and then and share links and stuff. Some people like it better because there's different rooms that we talk about different things, and you can actually see the links when you share them. But so inside there, and on Facebook and Twitter, I've put the symbol of the rosy cross. Now, this is what some people call the rosy cross or the rose cross layman. If you've never seen it, you can go check it out, but it's pretty colorful. And I can explain it to you this way, which it's not cool to kind of explain this stuff over the air, but I will try. All right, so the rosy cross is something that pretty much comes from the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. It actually goes back further than that, but that's where most people know it from. It's a very, very layered and complex symbol. It's not that scary because it's so colorful, right? And it's got 4 arms that represent the 4 elements, which is earth, air, fire, and water. And even if you actually put this up against the tree of life, you'll be able to see it. Now, there's another rose cross that comes from the original Rosicrucian order, which is just the gold or white cross with the rose in the middle. And I'll tell you what that rose represents here in just a little bit. So, in each, if you're not looking at it, it would be a good idea to look at it or just picture this in your mind, okay? In each elemental arm, you're going to find a pentagram that is surrounded by the 4 elements inside the pentagram with their astrological and elemental correspondence. And at the top of the pentagram represents the symbol of spirit. Now, if you're a Christian and you want to run for the hills, keep in mind that, the ox, the man, the bull, and the lion that you hear in Revelations probably came from somewhere. I wonder where it came from. Anyways, at the end of each arm, there are 3 alchemical symbols: sulfur, mercury, and salt. The white section above earth on the bottom, so you've got earth on the bottom, you've got air at the top of the cross. All right, you've got fire at the I'm trying to picture the cross. You've got fire, if you're looking at it, it's on the left, and you've got water on the right. Okay? And you've got the pentagram in each one, and the elemental symbols around the pentagram with spirit at the top. Then you've got sulfur, mercury, and salt at the end of each one. The white section above earth, which is at the bottom, earth is at the bottom, and the rose is symbolic of, some say, the Holy Spirit, but some say that gap between earth and the middle of the rose is the gap of consciousness from the physical plane to the astral plane. But it also has in the middle of it the holy hexagram, which some call the Star of David, and has the 7 visible planets at the points of the hexagram, with the sun in the middle. So it's got 6 of the visible planets at each point. The moon. Now, the traditional astrological visible planets are the moon, Mars, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, and Saturn, with the sun in the middle. Excuse me. Now, these all have their own meanings and representations and what they mean, too. So, like I said, this is a very layered symbol. Now, in the middle of the rosy cross is the colored petals that surround the smaller rose cross in the very, very middle. These colored petals represent the 22 paths of the tree of life in the Kabbalah, marked by the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. And I'll get into something really cool with that once I get done describing the symbol here. There are white rays, 4 of them actually, that extend behind the actual cross. And these are rays of divine light that come from the top of the tree of life called Kether. That's why they're white, which is the highest and most divine light of emanation. It's the divine light that everything emanates from. There's also a white circle, a very, very tiny white circle, and it depends on which one you're looking at, in the very center of the yellow cross in the very, very middle. It's tiny. Now, what do you think this symbolizes? Well, it symbolizes that divine light is at the center of all things, as well as expanding outwards. Yeah, it sounds pretty dark and evil, doesn't it? Anyways, the white rays have the initials, Christians, INRI on the initials. the letters on the cross that translate to Jesus the Nazarene, King of Jews. Now, in the bigger picture of the symbol, if you just want to look at the rose and the rose cross, just the main, I guess, if you don't really want to get into all the little aspects of the rosy cross, the rose and cross is, let's just look at those two. The cross symbolizes the body, and the rose is the blossoming of your consciousness. Now, this is interesting, right? Because if you look at the rosy cross, what do you see? Well, you see the elements and all this stuff, but I'll tell you something that maybe some of you don't know, but maybe some of you do. That the tarot is, everything that's in the tarot is in this symbol. The elements, the astrological correspondences, the 22 paths, everything. Now, usually most of us, when we sit down to a tarot reading, we get the divination. Like, this is your past, and this is your present, and this is your future. But really, this whole thing tells the story of general initiation, not just for the very elite, but for everybody on the face of the earth that's trying to wake up. Okay? So that's the rosy cross. And this symbol is what some of the adepts wear in their rituals, like in the Hermetic order, the Gold Dawn and stuff. But it's really cool because once you understand to learn all the little symbols, the alchemical symbols, sulfur, mercury, and salt, the pentagram, the astrological correspondences, the four corners, all of that stuff. You learn everything. You realize that this is really just divine stuff put in symbolic form. It's not really anything to be afraid of. Now, back to the colored petals that surround the smaller rose cross in the middle. So you'll see, like if you're looking at it, you'll see all of the little petals and you'll see the Hebrew letters in each one of them. Now, have you ever seen these funny little squiggly lines that we like to call sigils that most people in chaos magic, they have, they make up their own symbols so they can manifest their own things. But there really are regular, like, angelic symbols that people use for invocation. And now you know how they draw them. They actually use that rose to draw their symbols. They also use the tree of life. So that's why they look like weird squiggly lines. That's where they get them from. And 90% of the time, they're going to have an angelic name behind them, a correspondence to the tree of life, or an astrological correspondence, or something that's really not that scary, because a symbol taps into the subconscious and therefore generates in the astral realm and can manifest things in the physical plane. Now, if you want to understand how this works, this system of magic, which is only one system of magic, really, there is a book called The Mystical Kabbalah by Dion Fortune. There's also another book about the Kabbalah called Chicken Kabbalah by Lon Malo Duquette. And then, if you really want to get into all of the stages of the past and stuff, Israel Regardie wrote a very, very cool book called A Garden of Pomegranates that kind of explains everything. And so this requires you to do your own research. But so far, just by what we've studied, I haven't really found, just by studying this, an evil order that is trying to take over the world and control everything. So far, what I'm understanding is that this is a Western system of magic based on Christian ideology, Egyptian ideology, Chaldean magic, and the Kabbalah. How some of you get evil out of that, maybe we're just at a misunderstanding. I don't know. Or maybe that's just what you want to believe. But that's kind of like what they say, pissing in the wind. It doesn't really do much good. Now, let me tell you a little thing about what happened to me. When I went into Freemasonry, I was scared, right? I didn't know what was going to happen. These guys were talking about goats and all of this stuff. Now, I'm not what you would call an active Mason. I don't no longer go to meetings and all this stuff. I don't do that stuff anymore. I do everything just kind of on my own right now. But I went in there, not the intention to become a Mason or somebody special or somebody in high society like everybody thinks, but just to learn what this stuff was really all about, because I was curious. I was letting curiosity rule my world at that time. And here in Arkansas, things are a little bit crazy because in a lot of states, you will find that there's different types of Masons, right? There's free and accepted Masons, then there's free and ancient and accepted Masons, and then there's what's called Prince Hall Masonry, which is made up of mainly black people, right? Because Prince Hall was the first black Mason, and they created their own section of it, and it's really cool. But let me tell you that there's even other sections outside of Prince Hall Masonry. And so I was like, damn, there's 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 of these different Masonic societies. Which one's legit and which one wasn't? And I ended up meeting people like that were in my family that were Masons, and people that knew my family members, even people that knew my grandfather. And they told me here in this state that they didn't accept Prince Hall Masons. They didn't really, believe it or not, they didn't acknowledge Prince Hall Masonry. In other words, the Grand Lodge of Arkansas did not acknowledge that Prince Hall and its Masonic body were actually Masons. This was very interesting to me because when I studied Masonry, before I even got into this stuff, there was no excluding anybody by religion. You could be any religion you wanted to be. You could be Christian, Muslim, didn't matter. You could be any race. The only thing about certain Freemasons is you just couldn't be a woman, right? If you were a woman, you had to go into the Eastern Star. But now that's changing. There's like an international co-ed order of Freemasons. So I'm digressing. Anyways, so I got kind of upset about that. And I had a friend of mine that I was working with, was really cool. And he said, well, we belong to a free Masonic order that isn't recognized by Prince Hall Masons. It isn't even recognized by Arkansas Masons. But the more I talk to these guys, the more that they really represented what I thought Masonry was all about. And so I, signed up with them, knowing that it didn't go all the way back to the Grand Lodge of England and all this other stuff. And so what I'm trying to say is within all of these orders, these people, it's kind of like politics inside of politics. There is no way that these people, whether it's the Scottish Rite, the Blue Lodge, whatever you want to call it, there's no way that they are ruling the world with a spiritual iron fist that has aliens and, reptilians behind it. No way. Sorry. At least that's what I thought at first. Because I was thinking, man, how in the hell could these guys even be doing that? Some of them can't even tie their shoe. Some of them are definitely not, rich or just come from a certain lineage like a lot of people think. And that's what I would run into. I'd go out and say, man, we talk about Masonry and people say, are you a Mason? Don't they come from like rich white families and all this stuff? And I'm like, where in the hell are you getting this from? And then I would run into people that say, oh yeah, man, well, the Masons, they tried to recruit me. And I'm like, that's not possible. You mean they came to you and said, to try to recruit you like the military? Yeah, man, they really, really wanted me to be a Mason. Huh. The most thing I've ever seen a Mason do is say to somebody, hey, you should join maybe. If you think about it, do it. That's it. There was no hardcore recruitment happening. And so I go back into this world of the paranormal community. This was before I got into radio, studying things, listening to radio shows, and I would hear this from radio hosts. I would hear it from people, and it was all BS. Now, what's not BS is the oath that you have to take in Masonry. This will freak some of you out. The oath talks about, cutting your tongue out and throwing it under low tide and all this stuff if you break any rules of Masonry or anything. That's what the oath says. But that oath is just like when you were a kid and you pricked your finger and said, we're never going to tell the secret to anybody. But there wasn't any secrets in Masonry that you don't really know. Every ritual and everything that you want to know, you can look up. You can read the rituals. There's even a video on YouTube of all of these guys doing a ritual, and all of a sudden they go, now look what happens. And then they shift to some people in dark robes doing something on on a table, looks like they're cutting somebody up, and you can tell it's edited, and they're like, see what they're doing? None of this stuff I experienced. There was no damn goat, by the way, in case any of you guys are wondering. If some of you are Masons, you're going to be really pissed at me, but whatever. There's no goat you got to worry about. But here's something else. Even some of these clandestine, what's called clandestine, which means it doesn't go back to the Lodge of England and stuff, they would, They would really put you through hell. Like they had paddles and all kinds of stuff, just like a fraternity would. And this was stupid to me. The more I looked at it, I was like, this is not what my understanding of Masonry was. And so that's kind of how I got into the Rosicrucian stuff. And I started reading Manly P. Hall. And then I looked around at all of the different Rosicrucian societies, and they were everywhere. And yeah, I have a story about that too that I'm going to tell you. So I am not one to take anybody's word for anything, even when it comes to the books, because ideas get passed from book to book without ever being questioned a lot of times, just like Gordon White said. So I wanted to experience some of this stuff for myself. Now keep in mind, this stuff goes way, way, way back. So back to the Rosy Cross. It was one of the first symbols that I looked at that I thought, man, there's some real hidden knowledge in this stuff. It kind of just spoke to me. And it does to a lot of people. Now, the truth is, most of these Rosicrucian orders don't really get deep into the magical stuff like the Golden Dawn did. You'll find that some of them are afraid to mess with the tarot. Some of them don't do Enochian magic. Some of them don't do ritual, even. Some of them, like Max Heindel's group, Rosicrucian group, is just about astrology. So here's another thing. If they're all doing all these different things and they don't believe in this the way this group does it and that group does it, and they're all separate, they don't accept each other, and some of them are clandestine, some of them are not, what does this sound like to you? That sounds like a bunch of spiritual seeking people all going to their little schools that fits them best, but it sure as hell doesn't sound like somebody trying to take over the world via some type of reptilian force. Am I saying that's what's not going on? From my experience, I don't think so. I'm sorry. But what I did find is that some of the things in the Bible that were contradictory, that didn't make sense, especially in prophetic books like Daniel and Revelations and things of that nature, those things that didn't really make sense started to add up a little bit. When I started to look at the symbology of the Bible, I found out that the Bible was a very, very powerful and magical book when you look at it that way. But if you take it literally on the, I guess you could say, exoteric level, then it's kind of very contradictory and it scares the hell out of you sometimes. That's when everything started really opening up for me, when I looked into these things. Now, yeah, I mean, at the end, I kind of went my own way and I kind of stick towards the magical stuff, and I'm going to tell you about that. I've never really wanted to talk about it on the air because it's kind of personal, but I'm never going to get this point across, I guess, until I tell my own story, my own experience that happened to me with it. And some of the things else that I think that we should look at tonight, other than what Bill Cooper talked about, was the methods of magic based on the Rosicrucians, where they got their teachings from, some of the things that they teach, how the Golden Dawn kind of broke away from the Rosicrucians and did their own thing, and what they teach and their understandings and all their little offshoots. And hopefully by the end of this, you'll see that this is so complex and crazy, full of just average human beings trying to learn spirituality on a different way, I guess you could say in a Western way, that it would kind of almost be impossible for all of these people to be somewhere in the woods trying to take over the world. Now, this is different than Skull and Bones, and I would say definitely different than Skull and Bones, definitely different than the Bohemian Grove stuff. That stuff I'm not so sure about, I'm still looking into. But it will make you question the whole story of Christ, the whole story of why we base our history on the birth and death and the resurrection of Christ, our timeline's based on it. The stuff about the story that doesn't really add up the Rosicrucians kind of fill some of these holes esoterically. And that's where a lot of the conflict lies, because I know some of you want to know this. There's still people I talk to every day that want to know, did Jesus really exist, or is he just a mythological person? Was he really there? Or was this story just told to us for some other reason? Does he really exist in the astral realm, but doesn't really exist here? And I thought about these things too myself a lot, because the actual literal story doesn't make sense. The evidence doesn't add up. It just doesn't. But the metaphorical, the analogical story, all of that, it makes sense. Until I met Daniel Joseph and studied Daskalos. And I have to say that I believe he existed. That's just my belief. I don't believe his name is Jesus. Daskalos called him Yahshua. Some people call him Yeshua ben Joseph, which is just, Yeshua, the son of Joseph, etc. But I think the story got screwed up. I think it got really screwed up. And I think the priestcraft came out and had their own agenda of control and power. And through Constantine and everything else, made their own stories. So you wonder why these teachings had to go underground in secret. And you wonder why there's a big push to scare the hell out of you to say that these people are trying to take over the world, which is something we really need to look at. Why do things that we not understand, or things that are so-called secret, we look at them and we become afraid of them? We think there's some dark agenda going on all the time when somebody tells a secret. I got a text in. It says, it's really simple how they get evil intent out of mystical symbology. Their pastor told them so. Yeah. I had a friend that used to say that stuff all the time. Well, Pastor Johnny said, well, my mama said, well, Pastor David said, well, Dick Bob said, and I'm thinking, what do you say? What are your thoughts on it? Anyways, we're at the top of the hour. If you have any thoughts on this, look, I'm not any purveyor of ultimate truth here. This goes way, way deep. There's many books on it. In fact, I'm going to share some of them through the newsletter. The real history of the Rosicrucians, the separate orders, right? All of this stuff. The massive teachings of the Golden Dawn. And what we now know as magic is spawned from that. We're actually, even if we go back and try to learn all of this stuff, the magic that a lot of people know today is so much more evolved from that. But understanding occult science is just like anything else. If I was to go to the University of Occult Science, I would think that I would need a history lesson. I'm not one to just start taking something and say, yeah, this is it, without understanding where it comes from. But at the end of this, I think you will also see that it is very easy, and it can be very easy for someone to take these teachings, twist them around, and use them for their own power, which is a whole other conflict you and I are going to have to work out. I'm Joe Roop. This is Lighting the Void. Remember, you can donate to us if you like the show. There's a donate button there. You can also use the Amazon portal. Grab a t-shirt or hat. Stick around. Grab some coffee. Don't go anywhere.
Nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe, and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
This portion of the show is being brought to you by Ed's School of Charm and Social Graces, where this month only you can receive a complete free lesson in knowing which fork to use to scratch your back.
Magic, the occult, history, health, news. These are just a few subjects discussed on my radio broadcast, The Secret Teachings. I offer unique and objective perspectives on new and old subjects alike, while welcoming guests and presenting my own research with no filter. Visit my website for more information and to subscribe to my archive at www.thesecretteachings.info, and find me on The Fringe FM live Monday through Friday, midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern on The Fringe FM.
Hi, this is Sammy. Join us in the Deep South as we're lighting the void with Joe Roop on The Fringe FM.
Do you want to lose weight but have no idea where to begin? The Fast Start Diet, a 3-day weight loss plan, is the answer. 3 days of nutritionally balanced, calorie-restricted meals delivered right to your door. No shopping, no measuring, and no cooking. Everything is prepared for you and ready to eat at home or on the go. The Fast Start Diet has all the amazing benefits of intermittent fasting without starving. We've helped thousands of people who have struggled to reach their weight loss goals. Isn't it time we helped you? With the Fast Start Diet, you'll lose weight and feel great.
Find us on Amazon or go to faststartdiet.com and use promo code POWERSAVE to get 10% off your first box. And as a special bonus, we will include our #1 rated appetite suppressant spray free with your order. Whatever your diet plans are, start with us at faststartdiet.com and use promo code POWERSAVE.
Yo-hoy there, Gigi here.
And I'm Cortana, and we're going to bring you on a journey through all things paranormal, metaphysical, ufology, and even psychedelic on our show,
Shift Happens, live, Fridays at 7 p.m. Pacific, that's 10 p.m. Eastern, on The Fringe FM.
And remember, kids, don't feed the Archons. Feed ducks instead.
Duck up.
Introducing Shadow Light Tarot from Waking Canvas, the Fringe FM's new contributing artist Eric Tesey. This hand-illustrated black and white self-published deck serves as a reinvention of the tarot never before witnessed. Each of the several suits of this 88-card deck lineup form an infinite panoramic scene. Even the included visual companion guidebook is entirely hand-illustrated, cover to cover, with beautiful visuals and esoteric symbols and artwork. The newly released deck comes in a custom magnetic box with its own travel pouch. The Shadow Light Tarot Premium Deck and its travel-sized mini deck Wonderlight Tarot are both available now from WakingCanvas.com. If you use the code word FRINGE, that's F-R-I-N-G-E at checkout, you'll receive an extra 10% off your entire order. To discover more, including a free reading and time lapses of all the illustrated artwork, make your way over to WakingCanvas.com today. That's WakingCanvas.com.
Oh, this is good. This is really good.
The Fringe FM has some of the best shows in paranormal, like Lighting the Void, The Secret Teachings, Into the Paranormal, Alex Exum, and so much more.
Yeah, baby!
We're live every night with hours of live original programming. Plus, we air some of the best shows in this genre, and we're not afraid to tell it like it is. Check us out at thefringe.fm. Follow The Fringe FM on Facebook and Twitter at The Fringe FM.
All right, welcome back to Lighting the Void. Calling numbers 1-800-588-0335, toll free from U.S. or Canada. The text ends 501-777-5631, and you can email me at contact@lightingthevoid.com. So we went over the symbolism of the rose cross, or the rosy cross, and we also talked about the rose cross, what that means. And before the break, I wanted you guys to understand something. Like what I'm about to discuss next and what I've been discussing comes from the Rosicrucians and the Golden Dawn. So all of these things like, chaos magic, Wicca, all of these things, the tarot, they came from these understandings, which goes back to Europe and et cetera, et cetera. So we've got that, right? So we know that there's different systems. The real question is it evil, and is there a system trying to take over the world? And so far, I have discerned that I don't think so as far as when it comes to the Rosy Cross. Still doesn't mean people aren't using this stuff. All right, so what I wanted to talk about now is the methods of magic based on the Rosicrucians. Now keep in mind, again, that the Golden Dawn was an offshoot of the Rosicrucian system. First, understanding that this system is based on Hermetic fundamentals, principles of the universe. And where did they get this stuff from? Well, without a humongous history lesson, I can tell you that a lot of these teachings come from Hermetics or the Emerald Tablet. The Emerald Tablet, not to be confused with the 12 or 13, 14, whatever you want to call them, Emerald Tablets of Thoth. There was an actual Emerald Tablet that has several translations from Fulcanelli, translations from Madame Blavatsky, translations from Idris Shah, and there's a Chinese one. There's all types of translations. The one that I'll read to you is basically the one that came from Fulcanelli, but was also translated by a Frenchman. But it goes like this, and I have a little plaque here with the Emerald Tablet in the studio that I look at from time to time to remind me about some fundamental spiritual truths here. And so this is the translation, or this is one of them. It goes like this. So this is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. This is the Fulcanelli translation. As above is like so below, and so as above, so below. With this knowledge alone, you may work miracles. And since all things exist and emanates from the one who is the ultimate cause, if you guys want to call that God to make you feel better, do it. So all things born after their kind from this one. The sun is the father and the moon the mother. The wind carried in it his belly. Earth is its nurse and its guardian. It is the father of all things. The eternal will is contained in it. So some of you, if you want to look at that as the will of God, do that if it makes you feel better. Here on earth, its strength, its power remain one and undivided. Earth must be separated from fire, the subtle from the dense, gently with unremitting care. It arises from the earth and descends from heaven. It gathers to itself the strength of things above and the things below. By means of this, one thing, all the glory of the world shall be yours, and all obscurity flee from you. It is power, strong with the strength of all power, for it will penetrate all mysteries and dispel all ignorance. From it are born manifold wonders, the means to achieving which are here given. It is for this reason that I am called Hermes Trismegistus, for I possess the three essentials of the philosophy of the universe. This is the sum total of the work of the sun. The sum total of the work of the sun. Wow, so that is pretty revealing, right? So we've talked about solar ascension, which is something that these folks teach. When you get past understanding the astral realm and ascending spiritually, that you move to the lunar body, which is a dream body and astral body, and all of this stuff, and you get into spiritual ascension, and you get a solar body, where some people call the diamond body or the rainbow body. So here again, this is a Western understanding, but is also taught in the East. Like I said, it's been called many different bodies. So how can all of these different orders that teach different things, that come from different religions, the only pyramid that I really see is a pyramid of universal truth that comes through and teaches these things. Now, here's where I get tossed up. In the exoteric or literal form of the Bible, anytime someone was to try to understand these things through astrology, through working of roots or whatever, they were called secrets of heaven, and they were not to be messed with. In fact, there was a pretty big punishment for messing with stuff like this. Now, why in the hell would something create a tower and separate you all via race and language and understanding to keep you from knowing the universal truth? That's a pretty good question if you really think about it. Some of the things that the Rosicrucians taught were the illusory nature of time and space, human consciousness and cosmic consciousness, their technique of meditation, how to develop your intuition, the aura, telepathy, metaphysical healing, mystical sounds, spiritual alchemy, the first atrium, the structure and composition of matter, the power of your thought, the power of visualization, the law of the triangle, telepathy, influence of thoughts on your health, the origin of diseases. Wouldn't you like to know some of this stuff? The mystical art of breathing. Boy, this stuff sounds really scary and evil, doesn't it? Healing treatments, awakening of your psychic consciousness, all of the history of the great religious movements, the nature of your soul, the purpose of your spiritual evolution. I'm still trying to find something evil here. Reincarnation and karma, the understanding of good and evil and free will. Well, there's something that has to do with it. Maybe that's where they hid all the secret stuff that's trying to take over the world. Maybe. I don't know. Let's see. Let's keep looking here. Intuition, inspiration, and illumination. Material alchemy. Spiritual alchemy. The classifications of elements. The definitions of electricity, magnetism, and electromagnetism. Cosmic consciousness. Mental and sensory illusions. Well, I don't you want to understand what real illusions are? So all of this stuff is pretty enticing, right? This looks like a smorgasbord. I could go on and on. I mean, time, space, infinity, and eternity, cycles of life, and constant states of flux, the transition of the souls, cell consciousness, how consciousness is even in cells and atoms and everything. They got into all this stuff, man. How is this evil? Why are people trying to keep you from learning this? Matter of fact, if I was to think about a systematic structure of things to keep you from learning your actual abilities, who you are, where you come from, and what this is all about, there is one thing that keeps us all from learning this, and that is dogmatic religion. Fear pushed through dogmatic religion. A God that tells you that if you don't love him, he will kill you. I don't want to go on a rant here, but if you want to look into that, there's several Gnostic teachers that talk about that this whole story is all backwards. Another interesting thing. And instead of me talking about that, I think I'm probably going to have a few guests on to talk about that subject, because Gnosticism is something totally different. It's something it's all of it, knowing. But alchemy was one of the biggest teachings of the Rosicrucians, turning lead into gold, understanding the physical alchemy of turning lead into gold, which was supposedly a great secret. And some say, oh, it's not really real. But the thing is if you understand the Hermetic principle, if it works down here, then it works up there, in there. They call those guys puffers, right? People that had the labs trying to turn all these different elements into gold. But they also teach spiritual and solar alchemy, understanding the laboratory being your energetic body to transition into a solar enlightened being, true freedom, where you're not just stuck on planets and you can move through starlight. Now, I'm not saying this is true, but damn, it's enticing, isn't it? Now, why would somebody not want me to look at it? Well, because the light's a trick. It's Lucifer, right? That's what it is. Be afraid. Be very afraid. They also taught about astrology, mainly traditional understanding of the times. Right? So we can get into more of this stuff. Let's see. 780 area code. You're on the air. Who are we speaking with?
Craig.
What's up, brother?
Oh, not too much. But I just want to say, like, I think you're right. Like, these systems aren't, like, in control of anything. But, like, if you have the knowledge, you can manipulate people on such a deeper level because you can let go of your little personal, egoic drivers. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, like, you can let go of something in order to seem less than somebody else. Inflate their ego in order to get them to do something for you.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or like advertisements and stuff. So like it's like if it ever was something that they wanted to hide, it was because of that, because it's so dangerous, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know. But I believe the same thing as you.
No, I mean, yeah, because
Anyways.
they learn this stuff. They learn how to manipulate through psychology, like you're saying, through these fundamentals, playing with your ego, getting you to believe something. It's kind of like the clip I played, right? At the beginning, it sounded very enticing, right? So if you don't even understand cause and effect, you can become the effect of everybody else's powers and wishes that do understand it until you understand it.
Absolutely.
Then you're empowered. But the big thing is yeah, there is something that's pushing you out there not to understand this stuff, to be afraid of it. Now, what the hell is that?
Well, yeah, it's the global conglomerates, right? Well, like, what's our society based on? What controls our society? It's this money, right? And we chase it like it's like some sort of thing that's going to justify ourselves, right? Like we spend our entire lives in these little systems of hierarchy and stuff, and like we never really understand what they're about or how we're being used, right? If 1,400 people have like 90% of the wealth, like there's a problem, right? But like we're too caught up in our own like self-justification that we can't see past it, right? So if everybody went and I just listening to like the audio of Amarak, right? Like you can really accelerate your personal growth just by listening to all their audio that they have posted for everybody to listen to, you know? Like if every person on the planet went ahead and listened to that, things would change in a year.
Absolutely.
Guaranteed. Because they would now understand how lost they are, right? They're worried about their next paycheck or losing their home. But like, take away money from society and we still have the same amount of stuff. Like nothing's actually changed except for the trades or whoever's profiting the most from these pyramid schemes, right?
Yeah.
And those guys are the ones that control our major markets and stuff. And that's why there's a push for massive corporate entities that are working off of debt and never actually make money.
That's
you know
right.
what I mean?
Yeah, I'm totally with you.
So,
at the top of these pyramids, they want to blame all these. Well, thanks for your call, Craig. I really appreciate it too.
Yeah,
by
no
the way,
worries,
brother.
Yeah, man. Thank you for taking it.
At the top of these secret societies, they want to blame all of the secret. Well, at the top of the pyramid, they want to say it's Masons and Rosicrucians or whatever. And look, I'm not saying there's not Masonic orders that did their own things, like the Illuminati of Adam Weishaupt and all of these. I'm sure there are. But what he's talking about is something I agree with, is when they actually dug in and went to learn these mystery teachings, that at that point, free will takes over and it becomes your choice. Whoa, well, man, I can actually use this stuff to manipulate the masses, or even my neighborhood, or hell, my friends and family. And then they get together and they start talking about money and power. I've been a part of I've still, be honest with you, I have people to this day trying to get me to sign up to groups, and they think it's really, they think it's harmless, right? Because they're talking about success and all of these different things. But what happens is when you get in these little groups, and even Joe Rogan admitted he got into these groups with people, and you talk about technology and success and stuff, then you get into the marketing aspect, and then you get into the symbols and ideologies of that. You start really learning how to manipulate the masses to hand over that paycheck. So at the top of all this, I know some of you want to think it's reptilian alien overlords. It could be, but if it is, they're getting money too, because all you got to do is follow the money. That's it. So the Rosicrucians, like he's talking about, AMORC or AMORC is another Rosicrucian organization of many out there that you could go on YouTube or whatever and listen to their audios, but you're also going to find other YouTube and videos and audios of people that are trying to guide you into being afraid of what they're teaching. And if you live a life ruled by fear, then guess what you're going to do? And most of them know that. They know that fear has more power over you than your own light and curiosity. So what did they teach? They taught alchemy. They taught lead into gold, spiritually and physically. the traditional astrology, mainly the ones that you could see, the planets that we talked about earlier, the times and placements of the planets and the stars, but also their correspondences and effects on your soul. The Hebrew language, the 22 letters, its number correspondences, as well as the meanings of the correspondences. The Kabbalah, the Tree of Life, which is really, that's a whole nother complex system, or a diagram, I guess a map, a grammar map of consciousness and creation, made up of 10 Sephiroth and one hidden path, or one hidden Sephiroth called Daath, and 22 paths of the Sephiroth, between the Sephiroth, which that's a whole nother thing. I've tried to do shows on the Kabbalah, and it just makes people's eyes glaze over. But I will say, like, if you want to learn in astral travel what some of these things are or how to interact with them, you can use that system of Kabbalah. You can also use it for manifesting things in your life that are good. And then when it comes to some of the Rosicrucian orders, they all kind of didn't agree on what was ethical and what wasn't. So some of them did their own things. Like I said, Heindel went and based a lot of his stuff on astrology and manifestation and meditation. Rudolf Steiner did kind of more of an animism type thing from the universe. And I'll tell you all about those orders here. I've got a plan for that. But Magick is something that I had a hard time with, because Magick is what scared me the most, because once I really understood it, understood that it could be used by anybody, like a knife, like a weapon. It could be used, or a knife. Let's just use a knife, because that's the easiest one for me. It could be used for cutting tomatoes, or you could use it to really hurt somebody. And then that's when things get a little bit freaky. Now let's think about this system of control for a minute. Earlier this week, we talked about navigating the astral realm. We talked about the military and all of these other folks that have been messing with this stuff, experimenting on us since the 70s. Robert Monroe himself was curious that if I can do this, who else can do it? Who else is messing with this stuff? Because you can really mess with somebody's mind with this stuff. The astral realm seems to be a place where all our minds are connected. Now, I'm starting to think that the art of control isn't by using secret societies and mystery teachings like Bill Cooper would have you think. I think Bill Cooper was just afraid of it because it was, just like a lot of people think, well, this is something totally different. Did religion really come from this? This can't be. It's got to be the devil. And really just went that route with it, even though he did explain quite a bit about it. But this system of control, if it's really there, I think if a lot of us started tapping into these things, we would see that there are major systems of control. We would probably actually find out who's doing this to us. I still think, though, at the end of the light, at the end of the tunnel of control, it's nothing but a big, whopping group of people with a lot of money. I mean, I'm talking about so much freaking money that money doesn't even really matter. Not paper money, anyways. So Magick kind of scared me because I saw that, you could use this for light or you could use it for dark, especially ritual magic because it was so powerful, or what they call high magic, using symbols and angels and invocations, theurgy, actually calling God forms into you by invoking them, or evoking spirits into a circle outside of, or into a triangle outside of your circle. All of the stuff, man, that I'm thinking, okay, so these magicians are figuring out how to interface these astral beings into the physical realm via their consciousness or somebody else's. And, and we talked to a lot of magicians on this show that said they all have their own beliefs about it. One of them said that the angels did come here and they were so powerful he couldn't look up and he was crying. Other ones said it was just in their consciousness. And even Lon-Malo Duquette said he went limping away from some of it. And I believe these people. They learn to tap into these things. But you know what? The one common denominator about all of these cats, if you really talk to them, like I have off the show, off the air, in between breaks and stuff, they live very happy lives. You can tell that they're spiritually sound. You could tell them anything, try to scare them with the devil himself, and it's really not going to scare them. They just laugh it off. because they tapped into something divine. Now, I think even in the old Rosicrucian orders, magic was taught, but they were only taught for advanced Rosicrucians, kind of like the magic of John Dee and the Enochian language and stuff. Once you got to a certain level of understanding, then you started getting into magic. Now, we'll get into the Golden Dawn in a minute, but I really think they were only meant for the advanced people at first, but later, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn built a system of magic based on Rosicrucian and Hermetic principles and the degrees of Freemasonry, as well as the Tree of Life and Masonic backgrounds for the study and advancement of magic. Keep in mind, when I say all of this stuff, I'm just talking about the Western mystery schools. There is a system that we learned not too long ago. There is a system of magic and mystery inside every religion. Inside the Muslims and the religion, there's the Sufis. The Buddhists even have one we learned that I didn't know about. There are many, many, many mystery systems from the west to the east. So where are they all leading us to? And are they trying to take over the world? The one thing that I will say, and the one thing that I am kind of weary of, is when you get into things like magic, magic is the only time that I've seen people really take the wrong road, right? So they kind of go down the wrong path. They go down the wrong path because they realize that they have powers of their own. And I think that they get into this megalomania type stuff where they believe that they're up in this tower and everybody else is down here. And then they write books and then they do great things, but later on they die of something crazy, you know? So even to this day, when we talk about magic, I'm not telling you that it's evil. I'm not telling you that it's good, but what I am saying is if you get into the magic part of it, know what you're getting into and take it slow. That's all I'm saying. I don't think there's anything wrong with me saying that. But once we become effective explorers of consciousness throughout the astral realm, we might be able to find out what's really going on. And this is something that I kind of got a hint from Thomas Campbell when I talked to him. Because if you read in his books, he talks about things in his books like entities and aliens. But then when he came on the show, he kind of said, well, you know, maybe we're just here alone and we think it's all aliens, which I was thinking, that's kind of strange that he talks about one thing in his book, but when he comes on the show, it's a little different. And see, the astral travelers, they're constantly trying to figure stuff out on their own too. Even somebody as smart as Thomas Campbell. You're listening to Lighting the Void. I'm Joe Roop. We're going to be back here in just a little bit. Don't forget to sign up to the newsletter. It's totally free. We should be releasing it this weekend, and there'll be some free books and free inside looks at the studio. We'll be right back. We're talking about the Rosy Cross, the Rose Cross, and the magic of the Rosicrucians.
Alright everyone, this is Justin from the UK. Excuse the chitty. If you're into the fringe and you want to hear the brass tacks, me old China plate, Joe Roop and his guests on Light in the Void will open your mince pies. You need to shut your north and south and use your 10-speed gears and listen to them bubble. You could hear a Barry Crocker, no Brussels, but he ain't no holy friar. Anyway, you beat a Barnaby Rudge and take a butcher's.
Truth is out there.
There's something out here.
And so are we. KTOK Digital Broadcasting, The Fringe FM. Hey, Fringe FM listeners. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or no Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of The Fringe FM by calling 701-719-3971. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Call 701-719-3971. That's 701-719-3971. Listen to The Fringe FM on any phone, anytime, anywhere.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Your home has needs. It needs a healthy, dry environment all year round. Start by getting rid of the worst air in the basement and crawl space, where the problems begin and make the whole house sick. Introducing the new Smart Wave Ventilation Unit. It has advanced technologies to continuously reduce moisture, mold, and odors, and expel radon, gases, and pollutants. And now, Wave units include carbon monoxide detection to automatically expel air at a high rate and send you an alert. It also has an app so you can remotely monitor the conditions. Wave is a comprehensive, maintenance-free, affordable solution that will transform your entire home. Protect your home and family with what it needs. Give it a new Smart Wave Ventilation Unit. For more information, call 888-717-WAVE. That's 888-717-WAVE. Or go to dryhealthyhome.com. That's dryhealthyhome.com.
Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
Greetings, galactic community. This is Suzanne Ross, host of Sci-Spy Radio, every Wednesday evening from 5 to 7 p.m. Pacific. Join me for this brand new show featuring a revolutionary new genre, Sci-Spy, merging science and spirituality to give us answers to the greatest mysteries of creation. Together, scientific discovery and spiritual revelation reveal the truth about who we are, where we came from, why we're here, and where we're going. Tune in to Sci-Spy Radio every Wednesday from 5 to 7 p.m. Pacific and discover the truth for yourself at thefringe.fm.
You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
Follow The Fringe FM on Facebook and Twitter at The Fringe FM. The Fringe FM loves hearing from you. Have a suggestion, comment, or question? We're all ears. Email talkback@thefringe.fm. Want to know what's on The Fringe FM? Check out our schedule at thefringe.fm.
This portion of the show is being brought to you by Ed's solar-powered sundial. Yes, just put your sundial out in the sun for a few hours and watch the time change right before your very eyes. Some assembly is required.
The magic of the Rosy Cross is what we're talking to. Is what we're talking about tonight. And is it really truly evil? So we've gotten into the history, the symbolism of the Rose Cross, or the Rosy Cross layman. There's the Rose Cross and the Rosy Cross. So we're talking about this stuff. We brought up Bill Cooper, which I want to make something clear. the Mystery Babylon series that Bill Cooper did was, I'm not saying it was bad radio, it was great radio. And it did teach me a lot. I heard it before I got into any of this stuff. So don't want you guys to think I'm anti-Bill Cooper. He was excellent on the radio. It's one of the best. But there was an agenda behind it. That's all I'm saying. There was a definite agenda. And if you want to call in again, that's 1-800-588-0335. Callers always get dibs, but I know we're in a new kind of era of radio now, so most of you younger folks like chat rooms and stuff. Speaking of which, tonight I'm actually trying to go back and forth between chat rooms, and we'll see how that works. So we have a chat room over on the Fringe FM that you can jump in. There's a few people in here talking and chatting it up, and then there's one over on Spreaker as well, too. And if you want to tweet anything, you can tweet at #LTV Radio. So we're kind of transitioning from the Rosicrucian order, and we've talked about the symbolism of the Rose Cross and the Rosy Cross. You guys can really look that up. The symbols are already there. I put them on Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff, and even in the Discord chat, but you can look it up yourself too. I don't believe it's anything to be scared of. But how did magic, what a lot of people talk about today is chaos magic, Wicca, witchcraft, hoodoo, voodoo, etc. A lot of this stuff came from these original teachings that we're discussing tonight. And that order was called the Golden Dawn. And thank God some people are just now starting to realize the difference between the Golden Dawn, Masonry, Rosicrucians, Aleister Crowley, and all of that. So let's just get into it. Now, the Golden Dawn system was based on hierarchy and initiation, kind of like the Masonic lodges. However, women were admitted on an equal basis with men, which is really cool. The Golden Dawn was the first of the three orders, so it's actually a separate order of three orders, the Golden Dawn. Hope I'm not confusing you so far. Although all three are often collectively referred to as the Golden Dawn, the first order taught esoteric philosophy based on the Hermetic Kabbalah and personal development through study and awareness of the four elements. So you begin to work with the elements. Now, some of the modern Golden Dawn societies today have pushed actual magic down into the first orders, kind of like David Griffin's order, the Hermetic order, the Golden Dawn, Alpha, Omega, and stuff like that. But you also learned the basics of astrology, tarot divination, geomancy, and things like that. Then you moved into the second order, which was called the Ruby, Rose, and Cross of Gold. And that taught you proper magic, including scrying, astral travel, and alchemy. The one thing that I really can't speak much about is the third order, that was of what they called the secret chiefs. Now, these secret chiefs were said to be highly skilled. They supposedly directed the activities of the lower two orders by spirit communication with the chiefs of the second order. Okay, so I want to be clear about this. In a lot of these Western mystery teachings, even theosophy, you will, if you get into studying this stuff, you will realize that they talk about these secret chiefs. Secret chiefs that some, like Samuel Mathers, believed that were actual humans that lived on this planet, but could move around in the astral realm and even appear in front of you physically. Now, this was something very hard for me to believe in. I was thinking, no way. But the more I studied and the more people I talked to, people like David Griffin, people like other members of these orders, even the OTO, people that are more have an Eastern background, like Amalia and some other folks that have taken Eastern practices and went to Eastern mystery schools, talk about people that have these kinds of powers that can go through the astral realm, but they can also appear like you could just literally be sleeping in your bed and they'll come pay you a visit. So what I'm saying is, as if that's true, and if the military industrial complex and all of these people have been messing with this stuff since the 70s, it kind of makes you paranoid at first because you're thinking, well, what do they know? What can they do? Are they doing this stuff? Are they tapping into it? But I don't think honestly, and some of you may disagree with me, but when you really get to learning focus, visualization, and meditation, it is very, very, very hard to get to that level where you can even, number one, have an out-of-body experience and travel around, but then start doing things like Daskalo's calls, where exomatosis, where you can actually go into somebody's room and move physical things around. This takes extreme focus. Most of us, if we realize that the astral realm moved at the speed of thought, can you imagine how chaotic it would be? Do we really control our thoughts? Do these government folks, can they really do it? I don't know. I don't think so. But nevertheless, that's at the top of a lot of these orders. So back to the Golden Dawn. Now, this was created in 1888 by Samuel McGregor Mathers, who was a Rosicrucian and a Freemason, William Robert Woodman, and William Wynne Westcott. They were all Freemasons, and they were all members of the Society of Rosicrucian in Anglia, which was a Rosicrucian order tied to modern Freemasonic societies. Now, there is an American offshoot, but it's not really, I don't know if it's tied to Masonry or not. But in that order, you had to be a Freemason. And they developed this order by the cipher manuscripts, by deciphering these manuscripts. Well, look at there. Old Dan from Chicago was called in. And what's going on, Dan?
Hey, what's up, Joe? How you doing?
I'm doing good, brother. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I'm just kind of sitting on my couch listening, and it made me talk about like the Golden Dawn is interesting, and it kind of made me think, about the books I read when I first sort of started discovering that and everything. And I think really one of the biggest ones that helped me out was Dion Fortune. Are you familiar with her?
Yeah. You must have tuned in towards the second part that we talked about. Yeah, Dion Fortune wrote The Mystical Kabbalah and Psychic Self-Defense. I love Dion Fortune.
Yeah. Mystical Kabbalah. I mean, that book, honestly, I think that's might be my favorite occult book, just because she does a really good job of like connecting all the different, images in a really organized way. So when you read it, it's kind of like you're picturing, the Greek gods, and you're.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry. You're picturing like she uses good language and stuff and lays it out really well, and it's really not. She makes it. It is complicated stuff, but she makes it a little less complicated and a little bit more relatable.
Well, they have that book in audio format now on Audible. I don't really like the reader, but it's cool that they have it. Let me tell you something I did with that book, in which I recommend some people do if they can stand their own voice, is I read that book aloud and recorded myself reading it and then played it back. So I've actually read that book several times by listening to it, but it's a great book.
Oh, wow. I've thought about doing that just because, just saying with speaking words, and when it makes your brain register it in a different way, sort of. I feel like it hits your subconscious,
Right.
That's cool you did that.
Yeah, so
that's like that book is some great information. I'm like I need to revisit it. That was like a game changer.
Yeah, it's I highly recommend it. As a matter of fact, I think in the newsletter, I don't know if you're a part of the newsletter, but I'll put out recommended readings, and I'll put that one out. I even give away books in the newsletter, but man, I don't really want to get those. I try to be careful about it because I don't want to get those copyright hits on me. Even now I get that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, you're right. It is a great book, and I'm glad that you actually kind of know what I'm talking about. So that's cool. Yeah. How's your podcast coming?
It's going really well. It's we're going to be putting out our 10th episode, so we do kind of like a astrology forecast and tarot card of the week for the beginning of the episode, and then we do interviews.
Yeah, I heard it's really good.
Now we've got to get you on the show, Joe. I'm gonna send you an email tonight. Just keep an eye out, because I could ask you over the air, because that's how we usually chat, but we'd love to have you on. But yeah, it's going well. It's fun.
Well, yeah, I've heard it. It's called the Cosmic Keys Podcast, right?
Yep, that's it.
And who's your co-host?
My co-host is her name is Scarlett Ravenswood. She's kind of like a Instagram, YouTube, talks about, you know, esoteric subjects. She's a professional tarot reader. Mm-hmm. So I heard her on a different podcast a while back, and then I just, you know, sent her a message on Instagram, and we got coffee, and that was in 2017. So she was, of all, you know, I don't have any friends that are into this stuff whatsoever. This is a solitary interest, and then when you meet somebody in person in your city, it kind of, we were hanging out for a while, and then finally we were like, let's make a podcast and, you know, do something with these chats we're already having. So
in Chicago, do people, when you talk about this with people in Chicago, do they talk to you as if it's evil, or if these societies are really running the world, or you're messing with the devil and all that stuff? Is that how you get treated?
You know, so I do rideshare. I do like Lyft and Uber, and sometimes when you get talking with somebody, you can kind of test them out and see how open they are to it. I think overwhelmingly people are open to, like, at least astrology and tarot. And as far as magic, I don't really talk about magic per se, but I think there's growing interest in it. But as you probably know, you know, if you've been into this for years and years and it's been like a serious part of your life, that's different than just being like, oh, I think that's interesting, you know, because if you're really in this, I'm thinking about it, you know, I feel like I listen to your show and so many other shows. There is like a community that's not based on location. It's just like through the internet and stuff. So I know I'm not alone, but honestly, my co-host of the podcast, Scarlett, is the only person that I'm friends with locally that is like on the same level and into this, because some people might like the aesthetics of it, or like the,
yeah, I get
you know.
Well, listen, why don't you
that look occult.
Why don't you send me an email and maybe we can talk about airing it on the Fringe FM? What do you think?
Oh yeah, I'd definitely be down. That'd be awesome. Because I know you guys have podcasts. I've discovered a lot of podcasts.
Yeah,
like,
we have like Freeman.
Yeah. Freeman TV is like one of my favorites, and I never heard of him until.
Hey, and you know what? Freeman and I don't totally agree on the secret society stuff. We don't. But you know what's cool about Freeman is we can have a level conversation about it, kind of like, you know, Ryan and I can. And people like you and people that can have a level conversation about it and try to find the truth about things. It's so much better that way.
Yeah, totally. I think people that can do that are, I think anybody that's tried to go on to seek things out through the occult or whatever, you realize you can't, it's impossible to know everything, and you're always going to be, so nobody thinks they have the total answers. So
right.
Most people are at least willing to bounce around ideas, but it's insane. Like I change where I stand on conspiracies myself, but it's, you know, it's not like there's a lack of evidence to at least talk about or speculate.
No, I mean, it's good to change your mind, and it's good to be open-minded to this stuff. And it's also good to hear your voice all the way from Chicago, brother. And listen, I really appreciate you calling in, and please send me an email about that stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I'll send you one tonight. Cause yeah, we're kind of scrambling to get, well, we've locked in a few guests so far, but I knew I wanted to reach out to you because I want to ask you questions, you know?
Well, we'll do it, man. We'll do it. No problem.
Yeah. Pick your brain.
Right on. Thanks for calling in, Dan.
All right, Joe. Well, good talking to you, man.
You too. Take care, brother.
All right. Take care.
Dan from Chicago. Speaking of which, if you guys keep up with the Reverend Dan Lopez, the other Dan, he's doing a little better. I saw him put some snarky stuff on Facebook today, so that's good. All right. It's just good to see him back home. So we talked about how the Golden Dawn, that who it was created from, and that they developed this order by deciphering these manuscripts and the secret chiefs. They said that were visiting them. But the real reason why I'm talking about this is because astral travel and the out-of-body experience is such a huge subject now. It's been made popular by people for a long time, like Jason Quitt, who comes on the show every now and then, really is somebody I believe that actually had these experiences and has tapped into some of these things. Matter of fact, we were talking about the Heckus one night, and that's the only time I ever believed that we kind of energetically blew things up here. But it's super popular now, right? And so these guys tapped into this stuff, and they use these systems of symbolism and magic and other things to interact with it. They weren't just a victim to the chaos of the astral realm. In other words, they were learning how to be effective explorers of consciousness using a system based on the Western mystery teachings. That's all. But the whole idea of the Golden Dawn was to come in contact with the higher self or the holy guardian angel, which is something we talked about too with that movie that I wanted all of you guys to go watch, and it's called A Dark Song, which doesn't really get into it, but doesn't really get into the semantics of everything, but it's kind of real when it comes to the ritual. If you hadn't seen it, you got to go see it. It's on, I don't know if it's still on Netflix, but these two people lock themselves in a house and go through the Abramelin and the Mage ritual, which takes days to come in contact with the holy guardian angel. It's really cool. But that was what it was all about, to come in contact with the higher self. In fact, when Crowley did his ritual in Boleskine or wherever it was that everybody thinks he was invoking demons and all this other stuff, that's partly he was working his way through consciousness that he didn't finish. That's what he went out there to do. But anyways, that was the magical means and understandings that they wanted, using visualizations, focused energy, again, with a background in Egyptian, Christian, and Chaldean backgrounds and symbolism, divine names, and messages. Now, the other night I was trying to talk to you about how some of these magicians, then you can read this yourself, would use the sign of LVX, which is light and extension, which means, that's all it means. LVX, and I was stuttering because I had a brain fart, but it is Isis, Apophis, and Osiris, LVX, which is basically, if you think about it, that sounds scary, right? But really, that's a symbolism for birth, death, and resurrection. It's the symbolism of what you yourself go through. You go through just like everything in nature does. It gets its birth, it lives, it has a luxurious life and dies or whatever, and then resurrects. That cycle. That's what that whole thing was about. That's what I believe, in my opinion, a lot of the religions that we're being taught are based on. That understanding that we're caught in this cycle of life, death, and resurrection. But I wanted to do a whole show about this. And Laird Scranton was the only person that kind of understood where I was coming from on this. I don't think that is a bad thing. I actually think life is probably something that the universe really, really, really wants. If you look at the universe as a system of consciousness, that's kind of the way I look at it, as a system of consciousness that is trying to bring forth life, and yet might have tried a few times with the dinosaurs or whatever, and it kept having to reset itself. But that's what it is. And we think like aliens and all this other stuff is where we want to go and where we want to be. But what if life is actually the best thing in the universe? The experiencing a physical body, because the rest of it's just pieces of consciousness floating around. Anyways, I'm getting on a tangent here. But the Golden Dawn taught these things, understanding the conscious and the subconscious and the beliefs and its actual being. There were offshoots from the Golden Dawn, just like the Rosicrucians. These people, they started disagreeing with each other, so they broke away. Like Dion Fortune made her own, once they all broke up, she made her own society that's still there to this day. and I don't know if I want to get into that right now, but the Stella Matutina was one of the biggest offshoots, and that Israel Regardie in his first book of the Golden Dawn, all of those rituals and stuff are from the Stella Matutina. Israel Regardie was the first, in my opinion, the first person to reveal this system of magic, the real secret society, all of the teachings. And the first version he released had a lot of stuff that the Stella Matutina did, which they kind of made it their own thing. But then he released another book called The Complete Golden Dawn System of Magic, which you can get used for about $100, which goes into the whole thing. Now, some of these other references I'll give you, if you really want to learn about the Golden Dawn, I mean, really, really want to learn about it, not just get a teacher and start doing it, but learn everything you can, then pick up every book you can by Israel Regardie. Some other people that teach about it is Chick Cicero. David Griffin has a ritual magic manual that's really, it's very expensive, but you can get the paper, or not the paper, but the PDF pretty cheap. Aleister Crowley, he made his own version of the Golden Dawn, which is something I want to touch on too. But he didn't create the Golden Dawn. But we really owe all of this to a man named Israel Regardie. Now, again, all of these systems of magic, they come from, they're spawns of the Rosicrucian order, but they also have their base in the Golden Dawn teachings. Now, people like Gordon White, Jason Louv, and other magicians have moved past this. They read about it. They understand it. They know all about where this stuff comes from, but they are more attracted to systems like chaos magic, which I'll talk about when we come back from the break. But I wanted to touch on the Golden Dawn and what I know to be true about it so that you can understand it. Now, some of the famous people of the Golden Dawn, I think you would be really surprised who were members of the Golden Dawn, actually. And I'll let you know right when we come back from these messages. I'm Joe Roop. This is Lighting the Void. We'll be right back.
This is Elle. I listen to Lighting the Void because it's interactive radio with good content, interesting guests, and a humble host, sharing his journey through the esoteric. Hey, Joe Roop. Thanks for having us along for the ride.
Thank you so much for a delightful evening.
Well, I got a lot of ground to cover.
This portion of the show is being brought to you by new Tyrannosaurus Rex Helper. Yes, after a hard day at work under a belching volcano battling giant lizards, there's nothing more refreshing than whipping up a quick batch of Tyrannosaurus Rex Helper. That's Tyrannosaurus Rex Helper. It's Neanderthal.
Hi, this is Aaron Hunter, host of Real Paranormal Activity, the podcast where we tell real paranormal experiences of people from around the world. And we also conduct interviews with authors, investigators, psychics, and mediums. Real people, real stories, real fear. Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on The Fringe FM. See you then.
Hey, Fringe FM listeners. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or no Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of the Fringe FM by calling 701-719-3971. No smartphone app or internet needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Call 701-719-3971. That's 701-719-3971. Listen to the Fringe FM on any phone, anytime, anywhere.
Poor water quality is a major health issue, and it's only getting worse. Municipalities can't keep up, standards have dropped, and pollutants are increasing. Where does it all end? It ends by keeping the pollutants outside of your home with HydroCare's advanced systems available at Wave Home Solutions. No less than the best purification materials and processes have been developed by HydroCare to provide you with healthy, clean water for drinking, cooking, and showering. HydroCare far surpasses the competition in removing chlorine, odors, iron, lead, chemicals, limescale, and much more. Don't settle for less when it comes to your water. We'll take care of the toughest water problems for you, whether it's from a city or well source. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, call 888-997-WAVE. That's 888-997-WAVE. Or go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio. Follow The Fringe FM on Facebook and Twitter at The Fringe FM. Start your evenings with The Fringe FM long before those other shows get started. Exclusively live on The Fringe FM, hear the Quantum Hologram Matrix with the Reverend John Polk, Tuesdays at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern. And our newest show, Sci-Spy Radio with Suzanne Ross, Wednesdays at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern. Then stay up because we're burning the midnight oil well into the morning hour. The truth is out there, and so are we. Lock it in, The Fringe FM.
This is Paranormal News. I'm John Jeter. An airborne object the size of a van that's believed to be a meteorite broke apart over western Cuba on the afternoon of February 1st, showering the ground with debris. It reportedly shattered windows and sounded like explosions. There are pictures on social media of fragments of the object. This could be the same meteor that was seen over the Florida Keys in days prior. 5 weeks after China's Chang'e 4 spacecraft landed on the dark side of the moon, comes a discovery that it really isn't darker than the light side of the moon. But it does appear to get colder at night. After awaking from hibernation, the lander and its rover, Yutu-2, beamed back data suggesting that temperatures plummeted to minus 310 degrees Fahrenheit. Researchers are trying to figure out why the soil holds in less heat than when it was recorded during the Apollo missions. Meanwhile, a lunar satellite snapped a spectacular picture of the dark side of the moon from 200 miles east of the landing site. Earth also looks pretty damned impressive from that angle. If you haven't seen it, head to paranormalradio.com and click on News. I'm John Jeter, and this is Paranormal News.
By the way, I hope you know that you can listen to the show and the Fringe FM. There are many ways. We have our own app on the Google Play Store. We also have our app on the iTunes Store. You can listen to us via TalkStream Live, the Paranormal Radio app, TuneIn, iTunes Radio, Radio Garden. There's a call to listen line. I noticed that some of you guys, God love you, are still using the good old Winamp to listen to the show. Kicks the llama's ass. So yeah, digital is the new way. It's the new way to go. But even, after last night's show with Ryan, I still got some pushback about the flat earth thing. Can you believe that? It's not going to go away. But who knows? Tonight we're talking about the Rose Cross, the Rosicrucians, and the magic of the Rose Cross. And before the break, we were discussing, I guess, the semantics and teachings of the Golden Dawn, their history. But I think you'd be surprised to know some of the people that were members of the Golden Dawn. William Butler Yeats, Bram Stoker, if any of you Dracula fans out there, obviously Aleister Crowley was a member. Charles Rusher, Arnold Bennett, Edward Bridge, Dion Fortune, who Dan from Chicago just talked about, Everly Underhill. If some people say Gene Roddenberry, although I know he studied the Rosicrucian and stuff, but I don't know if he did about the Golden Dawn. David Bowie probably wasn't a member of a modern society that I know of, but he was definitely studying the Golden Dawn because it's in his lyrics. He talks specifically about the Golden Dawn system of magic. So if you love David Bowie, I mean, come on. So some of the common societies today that are out there are like the Hermetic Order, the Golden Dawn, the Alpha Omega, which David Griffin is somebody I really know, and I've actually study it under. And the reason why I went to him first is because, honestly, when I went searching out the Golden Dawn system of magic, everybody was real kind of high tower about it, but not David. He was welcoming with open arms. And people had their differences about this guy. And yeah, he's real political and he's kind of loud, but you know what? When I spent time with the guy, I actually hopped on a plane. I told everybody I was going to Las Vegas for a vacation. But that's not what I really did. I went to Las Vegas to go out to a little place some of you know called Pahrump to meet the Griffins out there. And at the time, I really didn't know Art Bell lived out there. I think I ran into him at the dollar store. But regardless, I wanted to meet these people, David and Leslie, and see what this was all about. Boy, did I. There's also the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. Another society that's here that's pretty prominent that the Ciceros run, who, if you pick up any books by Chick Cicero, they have some really wonderful books about that. And they get into the artwork of the temples and all of that. There's the Esoteric Order of the Golden Dawn, which is an online order that you can learn from. The Stella Montitina, I don't know if it's still around. So there's all these different, once you look it up, you'll see all these different offshoots of the Golden Dawn. Again, so far we are trying to figure out if these societies are running the world. You can get on YouTube and definitely see that people use clips of David Griffin's rituals and the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, the Alpha Omega, and all these people, and they kind of edit the clips to make them scary and stuff, and then they'll push it over to where you see them, and they're doing their vernal equinox ritual. Boy, it's real scary. And all they're really doing is celebrating the equinox. But they make it seem scary. Anyways, we don't have to get into the whole cause and effect and agenda behind messages again. Another message that's going around is that it's the Luciferian agenda. Do we got to do another show on the word Lucifer? Do we really need to do that? Because it's still out there. But some of the teachings, let's just get past that right now. Let's talk about some of the teachings they taught. The magical alphabet, and you're going to recognize some of these that go into the Rosicrucians, the Kabbalah, its different methods, the literal version, the meditative version, even the hierarchical angels and the planes involved with the Kabbalah, divination using tarot, geomancy, and astrology, esoteric astrology, scrying using the tatwas, scrying using the tatwas, which is an Eastern system, alchemy, studying the tree, including the pillars and the paths and the Sephiroth, the 72-fold name of God, the Shemham Pharesh, the microcosm, the macrocosm, traveling in the spirit vision, which I learned was something separate from astral travel, was just something separate even from scrying, but it's all tied together. It's even separate from remote viewing. You also learned about the aura and the tree and how the tree of life ties into your own body. Breathing visualizations, energetic visualizations, the variations of the pentagram rituals and the variations of the hexagram rituals, which when you jump into this stuff, you're like, man, I don't want to go around drawing pentagrams and hexagrams with my finger. And why am I doing this? And later on, you start to realize that it has real power in your life. Yeah. The scary stuff has real power in your life. It has real power in the astral realm. The 4 elemental weapons, which we've all seen on the Magician Tarot card and what they mean. We did a show on that already. But the Rose Cross Layman, which is our topic tonight, the Rosy Cross, which you'll see that the adepts, even Crowley himself, wore around their neck because they understood it. They understood the symbol, and they also used it. And then you'll get into things like talismans and geomantic talismans, and here's where things get interesting. You guys that talk about the quantum hologram matrix, like the Reverend John Polk and others, understanding polygrams, polygons, the material universe, and the magic in geometry. The vibrating of divine names, or magic through vibration. Learning how to scry, and then this is where things started separating in the Golden Dawn. This is where things got touchy for certain people. Once they got into Enochian magic and they started learning the language, or the angelic language of Enochian magic, this is where some of the members said, okay, wait a minute. I'm not so sure that I want to get into this stuff because I don't know if these are really angels or if we're really invoking real angels or if they're higher forces or demonic forces. I've heard people, and look, think about this. That's kind of a valid fear, right? So you take John Dee and Edward Kelly and they get into these scrying sessions, and the next thing you know, they've developed a language that's angelic where they can speak to angels and invoke angels, and they have to do it in a certain way to bring the powers in. And every single person I know that I've talked to about Enochian language says that it's very real and it's very powerful. Of course, this is going to scare some people. But I will remind you, you have to be at a certain level of consciousness and understanding and responsible enough before you should even mess with these things. I'm not saying these guys were, but I know for a fact that some of the leaders of these societies feel that way. They're always evaluating someone to see if they're ready to learn something else, not because they're better than you or they know more than you or anything like that, but because are you going to use it for the right reasons? And so we go back into the profane stuff. Now, tapping into this angelic thing is something, this is huge. I picked up a lot of books on the Enochian language. I've heard different people pronounce the languages different ways. I've never really heard of anybody dying or having anything bad, super bad happen to it. But there is a message going around saying that these beings are aliens and that they tricked us into tapping into this stuff, and it's a Luciferian agenda that we just dial in to talk to them. So doesn't it seem like, just bear with me on this, doesn't it seem like every time somebody comes around to teach us something cool or how to tap into inner dimensions or something, there's always some kid that comes around to spoil the party and tell you that it's dangerous or it's bad and you shouldn't be doing that stuff to keep you in your safe zone. There's one thing I'll tell you about magic, that it can be dangerous. It's kind of like this. I'm teaching my son gun safety. And when he was a little kid, I taught him with a BB gun. Right? Well, we taught him with the little darts and stuff. Don't point weapons at people. Always keep the safety on. Always be aware of where the barrel is aiming. Common sense stuff. Then as he got older, we introduced him to the BB gun, and as he got older, into the 22 and so on. So, of course, my dad didn't really do that for me. He just put a 20 gauge in my hand, and he would just knock the hell out of me every time I pointed the barrel the wrong way. But, yeah. So when you get into the Enochian language, that's kind of what I think you just need to do. You need to be aware of, you need to know that you're ready for it, and that's why it's at the top of the order, at the Golden Dawn order. And so you get into things like that, Enochian language. You also learn the attributions of I and Ri, the astral planes and the pyramids, the gods of Egypt and their magical correspondences. There's a big one. Rosicrucian chess, etc., etc. So all of that stuff sounds good until you get into the Enochian stuff, and this is where people started breaking away. Paul Foster Case runs an order called Builders of the Adytum. Of course, he's not alive anymore, but he was, believe it or not, a Christian. A lot of Christians were in these orders, especially the Rosicrucian orders. And he didn't feel comfortable with people tapping into this stuff. He didn't really think it was the right thing to do, so he went on and created his own order, and they built that whole order to teach you about the Kabbalah, alchemy, and the tarot. And to this day, you can go sign up there, get online lessons from them, and study the tarot and all the aspects of it. And it takes a few years to get through all of it. It's very extensive. That's actually a very good program. Okay. Sorry, I'm going back and forth between chat rooms again. The Discord chat's kind of fun. So when I got into this, I started learning how to do the visualizations. I'm just going to admit this to you. I started doing the banishing rituals, the Kabbalistic cross. And you know what? After days and days of doing this stuff, I wouldn't say my life got better, but energetically, I noticed a change. I also noticed that I could feel energy. For the first time in my life, I could actually feel it. And it's not super anything special. It was just always there. I just started learning how to recognize it. And that's when all of my little astral travel stuff started happening to me. It wasn't after I read Robert Monroe and tried this technique and that technique. It was when I actually started tapping into the astral realm via magic stuff, drawing pentagrams for protection and things like that. And I even called one of these guys in this order and I said, hey, listen, I've been trying to get out of body and do this stuff for a long time, and I'm not complaining. But now all of a sudden that I'm doing these things, I've managed to get out. And now that I'm out, there are things trying to stop me. I've seen shadow beings. I've seen all kinds of stuff. I talked to Jason Quidd about this, and they just laughed. They said, well, once you start doing these things, you're going to light yourself up in the astral realm, but that's okay. You're protecting yourself, so nothing bad's going to happen to you. I said, whoa, what? Bad things can happen to me in the astral realm? And you always get this answer back. Well, anytime that you mess with your psyche, bad things can happen. Also, about the same time, I had a really good friend go into a spiral. But I found out later that it wasn't really just Reiki that they tapped into. They tapped into some other things that probably shouldn't have been messed with. And this is the dangers of stuff. So I think what happens with magic is once people realize that it works, they get a little bit overzealous and they try to do things they shouldn't. Not because it's bad, they're just not ready for it. Matter of fact, I really think that you could probably do just banishing rituals your whole life and meditations. You could just do that and be fine. But curiosity leads me down this road. Now, what I'm about to say is pretty crazy, but I need you to have an open mind here. This is when I also started learning that there was a war going on inside the astral realm. And when I say war, I'm not sure if it's a war between good and evil or if it's a war between us and our trapped consciousness just trying to get out. But the more I realized that there was something in this place trying to keep us from waking up, that I realized that I can affect my own life through that as well. And things did happen in my life. And I might do a separate show on that, but I'm afraid to talk about it because I'm afraid to manifest that crap again. But I started getting scared. I started getting afraid. I started thinking, what the hell am I doing? I was on this big journey for truth, and now I'm messing with magic stuff. I know better than this. I'm a Christian. I shouldn't be doing this stuff. And boy, everything went to hell in a handbasket. I couldn't get out of that spiral. And later I figured out why. It's because I was in an internal conflict. I wasn't willing to let go. I wasn't willing to get out of my box. We talk about getting out of our own box all the time, but when it comes time and we get tested, are we really willing to let go? And my own psyche was messing this thing up. It wasn't a dark influence. It wasn't some evil bastard in the astral realm. It was me in my own BS. I got the first hint of this when I got frustrated at these little shadowy things that would push me back in. Like when I tried to come out of my body, they would push me back in. And I started getting pissed off. And so what I did is I commanded to be let go. But when I commanded myself to be let go, something came out of me, and I've told y'all about this. It sounded like James Earl Jones. Something came out of me that said, I demand you to let me free by life and light. And my voice sounded super deep. It was way deeper than I can get. And it was really powerful. And it scared me. But I knew it came from within me. That's the first hint in my life that I got that I was more than just this human flesh meat body. That you and I and all of everybody who's listening right now, we all came from something, and something way more powerful than we can understand. And that a lot of the times, the reason why we're victims to all of the stuff we think is suppressing us, dark cabals and reptilians and all of these things, a lot of the times it's our own damn hang-ups. That really what we could probably do is limitless if we really tapped into it. You don't have to play around with magic to tap into this stuff. You could do it with focus and meditation. Magic just worked for me a little bit better because I've got ADD and it helped me focus on symbolism. Funny how that works better in a Western society for some folks. It did for me. And the more I reach out to you guys and the more I try to reach out to people around me, the more solace it becomes. Because the people that do understand it in my life are miles and miles away. Like Dan from Chicago, or David from Las Vegas, or this guy from Florida, and that person. And so I also realized that when you go on this journey, it's awful lonesome. And then this brought me back to some of the Christian teachings, where a lot of fundamental Christians, they think that message, oh, you'll be persecuted and you're going to be outed and all that stuff because you're a Christian. What I think it was really talking about was when you started to go on your own journey of awakening, that you were really going to have a hard time with the world. And initiation, everybody thinks is a beautiful thing. It's lovely and it's wonderful, but it's really not. Not all the time, because true initiation forces you to deal with your own BS. It forces you to deal with each element. Your emotions, your earth life, your health, your finances, your intellect, the air, your passions, desires, and will, fire. And so as you go through these things, it's a burning pain in the ass and birth process, which I am still going through to this day. And I know some other initiates are, that we all are in our own way. But this system really narrowed everything down, and you invoked these things to kind of put you into a boiling pot so that maybe you could do it in one life, so that you can become ascended and get into your solar body and move past all of these crazy dreams and always be awake, even when you're asleep. But to get there means you've got to balance out all of these elements. You can't do it through reading books. You can't do it through talking into a microphone. And I think that's what started the destruction of a lot of people when they say, well, if you mess with magic, the devil's going to come. Well, no, I think when you go through real initiation, you start invoking things that are really your own hang-ups that you have to deal with. Who the hell wants to do that? That's no fun. But the rewards, and I can tell you this personally, even if you just mastered one element, the rewards are great. And it's wonderful. And so I get really angry when I hear things like the hour of the time or other people trying to tell me that tapping into these things is of the devil and it's not to be messed with and it's terrible because it's it's the wrong thing to do. So every time we try to empower ourselves, we're being taught a message. It's the wrong thing to do. Here it is again. This is the message. To be afraid. To be very afraid. Who the hell? I mean, that's cool if you're going to watch a movie, but that whole thing was based on fear. And then it took me back. It took me back to the original teachings that in the first ritual, they talk about fear as the enemy. It is definitely the enemy. Now, I'm not trying to preach or anything, and I don't want you to just go jump into magic, but all I want you guys to do is when people start talking about things that are controlling the world, the global elite, the all of these New World Order stuff, that I just want you to consider just for a moment that maybe it's not people like Freemasons and Rosicrucians. Maybe it's the people that are pushing fear down your throat day in and day out. Maybe some of the people that are pushing fear down your throat day in and day out don't even know that they're being influenced to do it. I hope I'm making sense. I'm getting a bunch of friend requests on Facebook. Oh, we do got to take a break, but you guys, you got to stop sending me these messages about psychic protection and stuff like this. Like, I really mean this. I love all of you from the bottom of my heart, but you got to start learning to tap into your own power and start learning to realize your own potential and stop thinking everything in the world is out to get you. Stop being the victim. I want to learn the truth about this stuff too, but we're going to have to be able to tap into our own power to get there. And even some of the people that were doing this stuff, some of the big names in these groups that were teaching tarot and other things, they're now gone back to tell you that, well, that was of the devil. And all I had to do is just go back to my church and everything was going to be okay. But you have to understand that this source is divine. You're not God. Nobody's trying to tell you that you're God, and none of these people are saying that they're God. That's what they're trying to say the Luciferian agenda is that all of these people are trying to play God instead of worshiping God. That's not true. You're tapping into the divine force. You're a child of God. That's it. And if you're a child of God, if some of you got children, don't you think you have your own power? I don't want to, I feel like I'm a Southern Baptist preacher now. We only got a few minutes left, you guys. I'm going to get to your text-ins and emails too. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Joe Roop. This is Lighting the Void. We'll be right back.
is out there.
There's something out here.
And so are we. KTOK Digital Broadcasting, The Fringe FM.
You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
Hello, this is Vance Nesbitt. Take the time to expand your mind by listening to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop right here on The Fringe FM.
Who were the real ancient Egyptians? What is it about ancient Egypt that captivates us all? The critically acclaimed series Magical Egypt is back with all new episodes. Let Chance Gardner and company take you on another adventure through Magical Egypt in the new series Magical Egypt 2. Magical Egypt 2 attempts a forensic reconstruction of the science of the ancients through a study of ancient aesthetics. Also, the best researchers and authors in the field like John Anthony West, Graham Hancock, Laird Scranton, Robert Bouval, Lon Maladuquette, Aaron Cheek, and more join together to explore the topics of the esoteric and the hidden messages of the ancient Egyptians. Just go to magicalegypt.com right now and put in the code word FRINGE and get 10% off any download or order, including the groundbreaking original Magical Egypt series, as well as the new episodes in Magical Egypt 2. Also, check out the great work and the companion series at magicalegypt.com. Click the banner on the Fringe FM or go to magicalegypt.com and use the code word FRINGE and get 10% off your order today while it lasts.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Follow The Fringe FM on Facebook and Twitter at The Fringe FM.
Lighting the Void is proud to announce Mind and Magic's Protection and Defense Course for protection from magical and psychic attacks. This is not a joke. Magic practitioners are on the rise, and with that comes attacks from baneful or black magicians that try to harm or hurt others for their own selfish reasons. If you are not a believer in psychic attacks, then this isn't for you. If you are, and you want the power to defend yourself and your family and home, then I highly suggest you grab Frater Xavier's Protection and Defense Course. In this course, you will learn how to tell if you are under attack from a natural source or if an individual is attacking you. The 4 forms of curses and attacks. How to remove self-imposed curses. The correct way to cleanse your home from negativity or malevolent entities. How to make your own holy water. What you should always keep near or under your bed. Herbs that banish negativity and promote purity. The most powerful banishing rituals on the planet. And for those that seem to want to harm you the most, how to put your enemies in a hell pit of their own making. You can also learn protection against shadow people and other entities. Or are you just in a bad planetary alignment? Even how to get rid of an enemy using a tic-tac box. It does not matter what your faith or belief is, this will work. Click the banner on the website at lightingthevoid.com or go to lightingthevoid.com/Xavier.
Want to know what's on The Fringe FM? Check out our schedule at thefringe.fm.
This portion of the show is being brought to you by Einstein's Express, where we move your package so fast that we actually break the time barrier. In fact, we guarantee that your package will arrive at its destination at least 12 hours before you send it. Einstein's Express, when it absolutely, relatively, has to get there the day before yesterday.
Someone just asked me in the Discord chat if I practice magic. I'm sure everybody has figured that out by now. But I would answer that by saying that we all do every single day. It's kind of cliche. But yeah, we all do. We all practice magic every day. And so what I'm talking about is becoming the cause of the effects in your life instead of being the effects of all the causes. And blaming things like, you know, overlords and archons and reptilians and banksters and corporations. Look, all that stuff could be real, and we'll talk about these things. But it's really all about a state of mental process, if you're going to be in a state of victimhood or you're going to be in the state of cause. And you can tap into this stuff and learn these things. Look, there's a lot of orders out there, and a lot of, especially the Rosicrucian orders, when I'm just talking about them specifically. There's plenty of magical orders out there. And, you know, there's even systems where you don't really get to be involved with an order. You just have a mentor, which is kind of cool too, if you like to do things the Jedi way. But there's so many of them, so how could they all be controlling the world, right? I'll just give you some examples. We're kind of past the Golden Dawn, but just letting you know that that's the basics of magic, and anything magical today that you study, they're all going to refer to the Golden Dawn. So it probably wouldn't hurt to learn it if you're interested in this stuff. Again, Israel Regardi, pick it up, right? But there's the builders of the Adytum, which I told you about, that was founded in 1922. When they study the cubic stone and the alchemical system, it's great for learning the tarot. Anytime you see anything that has involved with Egyptian masonry, which, considered by regular Masons, is clandestine. In other words, not part of the club, right? But it's still pretty much Rosicrucian. There's the Anthroposophical Society, the Miserium Dients, which was Rudolf Steiner's Rosicrucian order. There is the Confraternity of the Rose Cross, the CR+C. Max Heindel's the Rosicrucian Fellowship, which I think is a really good one. Amorc, obviously, who Craig brought up when he called in earlier. It's pretty, you know, they have a lodge system. I think in San Jose is their biggest lodge. They're pretty well known. There's the International School of the Golden and Rosy Cross. There's the Martinist Order, the OMS, the Kabbalistic Order of the Golden Cross, or the Rose Cross, excuse me. The FRC, the SRIA, which is the Masonic Order of the Rose Cross. There's Arthur Edward Waite's Fellowship of the Rose Cross, the Servants of Light, the SRIA in America, which is non-Masonic. And I would even say this, and some of you might smack me on the hand for saying this, but the Astrum Argentum of Aleister Crowley is Rosicrucian, and that has kind of a mentor type thing. It's not the OTO. It's Aleister Crowley's version of the Golden Dawn, added in with meditations and Eastern teachings and understanding sexual energies as well, just like in the OTO. But the Astrum Argentum is more of a Golden Dawn type stuff. It's more of an awakening thing. But mainly, if you search it, you're going to get two types of videos. You're probably going to see something about Amorc, or you're probably going to see a video or something that talks bad about him. But the big questions that we're getting to tonight, after we've talked about all of this stuff, is it good or is it evil? Is it bad? Is it from the devil, or is it good, or is it from God? This is something I'll never understand. How can something that created this entire universe, if you believe in creation, have an enemy or an opposite? In other words, it created its own enemy or opposite. Who else does that? Do we do stuff like that? Yeah. Creation created everything. And if you're one of these people that are book worshipers and you're not really trying to figure out what God is, but you like to worship words, you can look in Isaiah and it'll tell you. He tells you, I created the light, I created evil. There's no mistranslation. I created evil. So all of these things come from creation. So what do we know about the secret society when it comes to the Rosicrucians? We know how far back it goes. We know members that were involved. We know all of the different societies that were involved, but we also need to know the messages that we are being fed about it before we look into it. If you want to learn the semantics about it and you want to continue to think that they're evil, then, you know, I would say that William Cooper's teachings are probably for you. But I would challenge you on this and say just because something's different doesn't mean it's evil. When I was a young child, my dad and me, we used to get thrown out of churches. I literally watched my father get thrown out of a church and called a black sheep because he asked a question that couldn't be answered. They called him a troublemaker. And he was just trying to do the right thing. That's it. And to this day, my dad worships that book. Everything he believes in is 100% in that book. But you know why I respect him more than I respect some of the others is because at least he stuck to what it said. He stuck to the teachings. He would ask questions about Christmas and the harvest and when Jesus was actually born and get into the rapture stuff, how they all kind of separated their own beliefs, but at least he stuck by it. And behold, other members of my family told me that my father was going to hell because he didn't celebrate Christmas and all of these different things. And that was like 30 years ago. And now they are just discovering, oh man, there's pagan symbolism in the New Testament and all of this stuff. And now they don't even say the word Jesus or Amen because it has Egyptian connotations. So instead of embracing the fact that maybe religion came from something more sacred, more ancient, more special than we really know, instead of embracing that, they became standoffish to it. Well, I'm not going to do that because, the devil got in the Bible too. Well, what about my dad going to hell? Well, they don't bring that up anymore because they realized that, the contradictions were there. So are there really Rosicrucians trying to run the world? And why do they keep things secret? I think now, hopefully, after this discussion, why they keep certain things secret, especially back then when people were getting, crucified and killed and strung up for doing these kinds of things or asking these types of questions. It only now in our day and age is it okay to look into this stuff where you and I can talk about it, where I don't have a mob outside my door right now with pitchforks and stuff. It's still not okay in certain countries in the world. There's still people that get murdered for the things that you and I are discussing right now. So it's okay to be told what to do, to follow the rules, to be a good boy. Here's the book of rules. Don't try to tap into anything else, and yet you're left with all these questions. But now you can try to learn about this stuff and tap into this stuff, and then you can kind of see what people like Ryan Gable, Clyde Lewis, and other folks are talking about when people bring their political bias to things. You'll see it immediately. When people bring their own agendas to their message, you'll see it. You'll know it's there. You'll see the symbolism in all of the advertisements that these marketers and stuff that they really get involved with because they know it taps into your subconscious. But that's not the big message. The big message is that they're using all of these fundamental, heavenly, natural secrets that are from nature that really shouldn't be secret. The only reason why they're secret is because we developed a society to be scared of them for a system of control. But they're natural and they're yours. They belong to you. You have every right to know and learn this stuff without repercussion. Now, that doesn't mean that there still isn't cause and effect. That doesn't mean you can call upon something dark and it's still not going to hurt you. But it damn sure doesn't mean that these teachings are trying to control the world. I think that is the biggest deception going on right now when it comes to conspiracy theory. And a lot of the people that are anti-Masonic and anti-mystery schools and all of this stuff, I think they mean well. But I think their life is run by fear and victimhood. And I'm not preaching from a high horse here. I still struggle with this every day. Every day I pick up a book. Here's another book of Magick. Or here's another author that sent me a book that wants to be on the show. Should I read this book? Should I get involved with it? Is it really going to hurt me? Am I going to find some unnecessary evil at the end of all this and realize that I was duped the whole time? Well, why do you think those messages run in the back of my head all the time? Why do you think they're spinning around? Because that's what's been shoved down our throat for years and years and years. So when it comes to discerning things, and if you want to be a real seeker, eventually you're going to have to do more than read. You're going to have to bring some of these things into your experience and see what it's all about. Now, if you like reading and you like just studying this stuff and you want to stick to your beliefs, man, there is nothing wrong with that. But there is something wrong with pointing your finger at something and saying that this is what's going on when it's not. The real systems of control, from my experience, and I hope from yours, is 100% power-backed and money-backed. That's it, man. That's where I chase everything. Like, there is no reason in the world in 2019 why we don't have cars that are running on something besides gas. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, how's that related? It all relates. This system of control is very complex, but it's done at the top just by just a few people that can just have a phone meeting, man. I'm telling you. The CNP is one of them. There's other groups, and we're really going to start digging these groups out, by the way. And yes, they use magic, and yes, they use some of this stuff against you. But you're not going to empower yourself by shouting up and down and jumping up and down saying they're evil, they're using magic, they're evil, they're Masons, and they're evil. We're not going to get anywhere doing that. That's kind of like somebody that uses a knife and stabs you with it and goes, they got knives and I don't. They got knives and I don't have a knife. It's not fair. You do. You have your own knife. You can fight back with the same stuff they're using against you. It's called empowerment. It's empowering yourself with real divinity and real truth. And now they're pushing all of this AI down our throats, which is something totally different. And just like in Wayne McCroy's book, in that book, he's showing you how they're using Hermetic principles to invoke this thing, this technological thing that's coming. Ryan Gable wrote about it as well. You can really see it's coming. And as long as they keep us in these little circles of fear and separated with ideas, politics, as long as you don't know your own power, you're always going to be the victim. I can't do this stuff on my own, Ryan. We all can't do this stuff on our own, but we've got to really look into things and learn how to discern what's real and what's not, instead of being talked to sensationally. Don't think I didn't think about when I started doing this radio show. You know, I had the aliens kind of coming down, and, you know, that's all I really did. But I didn't want to push the sirens and the dogs and all this stuff and go, all right, we're going to get really scary tonight, you know, and talk about all the ways that we're being screwed over, and then talk about all the ways that we're victims. It's not fun, right? Because then you become responsible for your own stuff. It's not fun to talk about. But if you get into like just pure, you don't even have to start with secret societies or Rosicrucians or magic or none of that. Just pure meditation. If you can just at least attempt that daily, I promise you're going to find out all this stuff that's really ruling our minds. And then once we get there, well, you know, then we can talk to these aliens. You know, yesterday, it was the day before, I had talked to Sue Walker and Reverend White Honor about the Ponte. Now, for some of you that like to talk about UFOs and stuff, let's just do a what if here, real quick, okay? Just, what if the Ponti are real? What if they really are beings from another planet and another dimension, and they want so bad to talk to us, and they've always wanted to talk to us? And the reason why they have to do things the way they do things is because our minds can't accept the real truth of what's going on. In fact, what if these alien beings, I mean, like, they would just love to hang out with us and talk to us, but we're just not ready mentally yet. Number one, because we don't even know our own power, because we've put ourselves into little cages. We might actually hurt them or make them our enemy. And so they slowly have to do what they do and talk to us and do their things, you know, where people have missing time or they see something out of the corner of their eye or things like that, to where they can interact with us, but in a safe way. And they sit back and they watch us hopefully evolve into real divine universal beings. And I know this sounds wacko. It sounds like I'm on acid or something, but, you know, if they are here and they are visiting us and they are trying to talk to us, I think that they know that there's a lot of stuff holding us back. And I feel like right now we're going through a birthing process, because I can see it. I mean, there's a lot of infighting going on with these radio shows and some of the marketing that's been going on and all of this stuff. I honestly really didn't want to be a part of it. I didn't want to mess with it. I wanted to go down this road of exploring consciousness and really figuring out where real UFOs actually are, what they really are, and just focus on that. And then, okay, later on, you know what? I'll figure out a way to make it entertainment for your little minds, right? But that's not the way to be. So they put the cart in front of the horse. We want to entertain you first and then get the message across. And then when you start throwing money at them, then they kind of like, well, maybe the message isn't really that important. They just like the entertainment too much. We can tell them whatever story we want. I mean, hell, guys, if you're going to do that and you're in the truth community, you might as well just go back to science fiction. There's nothing wrong with that. I love sci-fi. Love it. But I know it's sci-fi. So some of the references that I would give out tonight, like some of the first books I would say to grab if you're going to look into books. There is a really thick book called The Gnostic Bible, which is another show, and I'd like to have a guest on for that show, actually, that goes into the whole backstory of religion and the Bible and where this stuff really came from and how the story got screwed up. And there's another book that's kind of where you can look at just about every single magical system there is all in one book. It's fascinating. Never seen a book like it. But it's called The Magician's Companion by Bill Whitcomb. And then anything by Israel Regardie. You know, some people have also asked that, you know, why don't you go 5 nights a week or anything like that? I'm not ready to go on 5 nights a week right now because I've got too much work to do. And I also want you guys to know that, you know, the Fringe FM just isn't a radio station. I get people that reach out to me. I think this month there were 7 different people that reached out to me that wanted to do a radio show. They wanted to do a podcast or something. And all I can tell you is to send your demo in, because that's how we make our living, is we produce shows for people. We do our own shows. It's the only way we can have a radio station. If it wasn't for the donations, the little bit of advertising, and the shows that we produce, we wouldn't have this radio station. So all of it works together. We tried doing the, you know, and I had a big discussion with Ryan about this. We tried the listener-supported radio. That's a bad deal. When you're constantly, I mean, we ask for donations, right? But when you're constantly asking for them all the time, it just doesn't sit right. So we developed a system to where, you know, hey, if you want a show or a podcast, we'll help you with it. man, we'll help you develop it. We'll help you produce it. Not only that, we've got some of the best coaches in the business that can help you with this stuff. That's allowed us to use their material to help coach you, because it's not just my voice that needs to be heard. I know so many of you want to do this as well. Some of you have already done it. Some of you created your own YouTube channels, which I'm very proud to see. Some of you have started creating your own podcasts like Dan, which is really cool. But we're moving into a different era of truth, where it's okay to just have real questions and talk about real things. And even in the podcast world, that's becoming more and more okay. So I would say, if you ever thought about it, you don't have to pay us to produce it. You can come up with an intro song and, do your own thing, and then come up with an outro song and just send it to us. And you never know, man. Like after I talk to Eric and Jeremy, even if we decide not to put it on the network, we'll still give you feedback. Hey, if you do this or that, we probably play it, I don't want to let any of you down. And I'm starting to get messages where people really want my time to do all these different things, and I wish I could. I really wish I could. But I'd go dead broke if I did do all this stuff for free. I can't. I hope you understand that. But I also hope that you guys know that if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be where we're at. And so this is Joe Roop signing off on Lighting the Void. This is my very last episode I'm ever going to... No, I'm just playing. Don't you love it when those radio hosts do that? This is going to be my last broadcast of the century. I'll never come back on the radio again. Then they show up 6 months later. They do that for effect, by the way. I'm not going to do that to you. But we do got to roll out of here. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I think this is like the first time I've ever done a radio show for 3 hours solid by myself. And so it's kind of a big deal to me. I'll work on it. But stay tuned with us next week. We're going to have some more guests. We're going to get into these subjects a little bit deeper. And don't forget that this show was produced by The Fringe FM and cannot be syndicated without written permission. And music was by Chronox, Kevin MacLeod, Space Station, and Bundy. The guitar man's name is Bundy, for all of y'all that keep asking. We'll see you guys next week. Stay tuned for the Secret Teachings up next. Good night.
On this program do not necessarily reflect those of The Fringe FM, KTLK Digital Broadcasting, its sponsors, affiliates, or staff. Listener discretion is advised. We told you weeknights on The Fringe FM are now even better, and we mean it.
Do it live!
Where else can you hear the best shows and the best talent? Kick off your evening with our newest host, Alex Exum, live at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 Eastern. Hang out with me, Joe Roop, on Lighting the Void at 9 Pacific, midnight Eastern. Ryan Gable expands your mind on the Secret Teachings at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern. We're bringing the heat every single night. Fire it up, The Fringe FM.
Yahoy there. This is Gigi from Shift Habits. And holy shit, you're listening to KTLK, The Fringe FM. Hey, hey.
I'm young and I'm in my prime.